Bref. Et nous voilà en ligne pour continuer notre partie de Discworld Noir. Je vérifie que tout est en ordre. Comme toujours, au niveau de la publication, ça a tout l'air parfait. Bon, j'espère que tout le monde a passé un bon week-end, reposant autant que faire se peut. J'avais envie d'y revenir assez vite, parce que c'est vrai, il faut battre le fer quand, quand il est chaud. J'ai aussi rechangé un peu mon installation audio sur la plateforme de stream, donc j'espère que ce sera satisfaisant pour le jeu. Lançons ça. Je vais peut-être augmenter un peu le son, après on verra. Je vérifie avec ma barre verte que tout soit en ordre. Hop. Donc reprenons notre partie. Donc, je vais faire une petite description d'objet, voir ce que dit la barre de son.
My purse might not have been my most valued possession, but I sure felt happier when it was full than when it was empty.
Je pense que c'est pas mal. Il faut que j'attende que ça disparaisse.
My purse might not have been my most valued possession, but I sure felt happier when it was full than when it was empty.
Je pense que c'est bon, qu'on entend assez bien les dialogues. Alors, nous venons juste de commencer l'acte 3 du jeu. Donc, nous avons trouvé l'épée en or que tout le monde veut récupérer. Mais c'est au moment où on l'a récupérée que nous avons été poignardés par un mystérieux assassin. Une mystérieuse assassine, peut-être, qui nous a laissés pour morts. Or, nous voilà devant notre tombe, puisque, miracle, nous sommes en réalité un loup-garou. Nous l'ignorions. Donc, quelque chose nous a changé en loup-garou. Et donc, à présent, nous sommes habités du pouvoir des loups. Et notamment, nous pouvons nous transformer en loup pour renifler de ci, de là les odeurs. C'est-à-dire que si je clique sur Newton, hop, j'ai maintenant une icône de loup et je peux me transformer en loup et voir ainsi les odeurs. J'ai même un inventaire d'odeurs sur moi pour comparer.
The aroma of a very old and slightly damp nursery rug. Eau de Gaspode. The unmistakable scent of the river Ankh. A strange scent I first found in the cemetery. The scent of a woman.
Et donc avec ça, et en comparant ces odeurs-là avec les odeurs que l'on a en forme de loup, on va pouvoir savoir qui est venu où et pour faire quoi. Donc là, si on voit par exemple, on a l'odeur d'une femme, on a un brouillard bleu-vert. On a une traînée de magenta avec des points brillants. Et je pense que c'est bon. Ouais. Et donc, on peut parler à Gaspode.
Going by the name of Gaspode the Wonder Dog. Small, bow-legged, and wiry. Basically gray, but with patches of brown, white, and black in outlying areas. Gaspode appeared to have fleas, hard pads, scurf, crusted yellow eyes, arthritis, rotting teeth, and horrible bad breath. Between him and Nobby, I was starting to worry about my circle of friends.
Certes. Et donc maintenant, on peut parler à Gaspode, au chien, hein, apparemment. Donc, échangeons un peu. Good boy. Parlons un peu à bâton rompu.
Are you the only dog on the streets then?
No.
Tell me about the others.
The Dog Guild, Bunch of troublemakers trying to overthrow the master race.
Overthrow the master race?
Yeah, your kind. Well, your kind before some werewolf bit you.
And who do you think could have bit me?
Well, there are a few werewolves in Ankh-Morpork. Like any busy metropolis, we have our share of the ethnic minorities.
Not all of those minorities change shoes by about 14 sizes in the full moon, though.
True enough.
Alors, parlons un peu des loups-garous d'Ankh-Morpork.
You said there were a few werewolves in Ankh-Morpork.
That's right.
Do you know any of them?
I thought I knew all of them.
Who are they?
Well, there's Ludmilla Cake.
Who's she?
Mrs. Cake's daughter. In human form, Ludmilla is built to a larger scale, and she has slightly pointed ears and teeth which are white and beautiful but catch the light in a disturbing way.
What's she like?
Apparently, she has this disturbing habit of staring at people's throats while she talks to them, which tends to put a damper on the conversation.
Anyone else?
There's Lupine, although he's technically a were-man. He's a 7-foot-tall, muscular, hairy young man with long canines, pointy ears and yellow eyes during the full moon. The rest of the time, he is a real wolf.
That must make relations with other werewolves difficult.
Well, he appears to have a satisfactory liaison with Ludmilla.
Liaison.
Despite being the same shape only 1 week per month.
That all of them?
After that, there's only Angua.
Angua?
I don't want to talk about Angua.
Where does Angua come from?
I told ya, I don't want to talk about it.
Parlons un peu de la guilde des chiens.
Tell me about the Dog Guild.
I already told ya. A bunch of troublemakers.
But there's no guild house for a guild of dogs.
That's right. No motto and no coat of arms. Not even a little tartan one.
So what's the deal?
The guild is made up of all the dogs who have been bad boys.
How do you join?
You have to run away from your owner.
What does a dog guild do?
Same as a regular guild.
Cut themselves off from everyone else and act smug?
That's about it. It controls scavenging rights, nighttime barking duties, breeding missions, and howling rotas.
Seriously?
Well, it used to when Big Fido was in charge. Since he, disappeared, they've basically just run around as a pack of thugs.
Disappeared?
He's dead. I know he's dead anyway. I saw it happen. But observational evidence isn't as compelling as you'd like to think. Nah, most of the dogs believe that he lives on, leading a huge pack of mountain wolves who nightly strike terror into isolated farmsteads. I guess it makes digging in the middens and hanging around the back doors for scraps seem, more bearable.
We're only doing it until Big Fido gets back.
Exactly.
Continuons de parler de Gros Fido.
Who was Big Fido?
He used to be a rather dainty white poodle with the overgrown remains of a poodle cut and wearing a diamante collar.
What happened?
He went, to hijack a phrase, barking mad. One day he realised that everything around him, his bowl, his collar, his kennel, his blanket, had his name on it. He ate his blanket, savaged his owner, and ran off to found the Dog Guild.
And others followed him?
He intimidated others with his dream that all dogs were wolves at heart and needed only to band together to overthrow humanity, the master race, and reclaim their ancient heritage.
And where is he now?
Nobody knows. But mothers tell their pups to be good, or Big Fido will get them.
I thought you said he was dead.
Oh, he is. I saw it happen. Sorta fell to his death. His sorry remains were picked up by foul old Ron and sold to a furrier in about 5 minutes. But that's just what actually happened. That doesn't mean anyone knows what happened.
The myth has more power than the truth.
You're not as dumb as you look, are you, Luton? I'll make a wolf out of you yet.
Quel est... Alors, hop, où est-ce que je suis? Quel est le propriétaire de Gaspod?
Did you run away from your owner?
Le maître, plutôt.
Not exactly.
What happened?
He threw me into the river in a sack with a brick when I was a pup.
How
Oh.
did you survive?
Well, luckily, the river was the Ankh, so I just walked ashore in the sack.
That's quite a puppyhood you had.
Yeah, and that's not mentioning the certain confused relationship I had with the brick for several days.
So you never had an owner.
Well, I was fixed up with some owners.
Were they nice?
Oh, they were nice, all right. They were so bloody nice, it drove me nuts. Yeah, they were always patting me and giving me a bloody B-A-T-H. Yeah. They even gave me a little bright doggy bowl with the words Mr. Huggy on it.
And you ran away.
The moment the brush hit the bubble bath.
Reparlons un peu de nos
Do you see
odeurs.
scents as colors?
Nah, I'm just a dog.
How did you know what I was talking about?
I just had to think about what the things I could smell would look like as a colour. Wasn't too hard.
Can you go through those colors again?
All right. There was the general bright green mist of the River Ankh, right?
Right. And the hideously unbearable blue fog is you.
Hey, it was only unpleasant a short while ago.
You're telling me.
Then you've got a trail of purplish red with flashing dots, which is where somebody passed through the cemetery.
But we don't know who.
Right. And if you don't follow it before the smell of the Ankh drowns it out, you'll just have to wait until you find it again somewhere else and compare it.
Ok. Bon, ben merci Gaspod.
Thanks for your help, Gaspode.
I live to serve you, master.
J'aime beaucoup le personnage de Gaspod. C'est pas quelqu'un qu'on voit beaucoup dans le jeu, mais il est tout de même très, très sympa.
My tombstone, Luton P.I., gone and forgotten. Not the epitaph I'd hoped for. I thought I could smell a woman around my tombstone. My own grave. How depressing. I decided against crawling back into my grave.
Pardon. Il y a une lettre à côté de la tombe.
There was a watermarked letter by my graveside.
Alors, que dit cette lettre? Je me rappelle que l'animation pour récupérer la lettre était maladroite. On va voir si c'est vraiment le cas. Ouais, un peu
There's a
bizarre.
letter at my graveside.
Who's it from?
Ilsa,
Who's Ilsa?
an old flame of mine from the good old days.
How old?
Old enough to be good.
What does it say?
It appears to be a love letter.
Dear Luton, I'm writing this letter even though I know I will never have the courage to give it to you. I have to leave Ankh-Morpork. I can't tell you why. I wish I could. These last few days have meant the world to me. But I haven't the strength to tell you to your face that I can never be yours. I am married to an Agatean man named Two Conquers, and I thought I would never see him again. He was dead to me, and my life was empty. Please believe me, I never meant to hurt you. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. I will always look back on the Hotel Pseudopolis fondly.
You all right?
Sure, this is just one of those big emotional scenes like in the Clickies.
I suppose a bone is out of the question. Maybe a dog biscuit. Wag, wag.
Ouais. La lettre qu'Ilsa nous a écrite avant de partir. Alors, en revanche, est-ce que du coup je peux... Non, il n'y a pas la lettre à côté, parce que j'aurais pu peut-être associer la lettre.
The scent of a woman around my grave.
Et je peux pas comparer ça avec un objet que j'aurais... Je pense pas, hein. Si, voilà.
The scent of a woman.
Du coup, en prenant la lettre, j'ai pu associer l'odeur de la lettre avec Ilsa, comme c'était l'autrice, et donc du coup,
Well, of course it was the same scent.
comparer l'odeur avec ce qu'il y a dans le décor, et comme ça, je peux enfin mettre un nom sur l'odeur que j'ai récupérée. Donc ça va être l'occasion de pas mal d'énigmes, vraiment sympa. Tous les écrans n'ont pas nécessairement un écran d'odeur, comme là vous voyez, j'ai changé d'écran du cimetière, mais en fait c'est toujours la même odeur, la même scène. Mais il y en a un certain nombre.
The cemetery was at the back of the temple of small gods. Either I was going over to the temple or I wasn't. That's all there was to it.
Donc l'acte 3. L'acte 3, c'est peut-être l'acte dont je me rappelle le moins, j'avoue. J'ai des souvenirs un peu plus diffus le concernant, mais on va faire de notre mieux. Donc déjà, allons voir l'endroit où j'ai été assommé et où Malachite a été tué. Là, on voit Malachite, hein, avec le...
They'd put a chalk outline where Malachite had fallen. It really drove home how big that troll was. I couldn't think of a good reason to erase the chalk outline, other than the giddy thrill of vandalism.
Ce qui peut être une excellente explication. Et donc, comme on est sur le toit, transformons-nous en loup pour voir un peu quelles sont les odeurs qu'il y a. Alors là, c'est la gargouille qui a témoigné en notre faveur, mais on ne peut pas lui parler.
There were signs of a teal scent on the roof. The scent had a distinct hint of tobacco.
Il y a une
Some
odeur
parts
bleu
of the roof had a
marine.
navy blue scent to them.
Alors comme je suis un peu daltonien, comme je disais, parfois il y a des odeurs, des couleurs que je distingue moins bien les unes des autres.
Around the chalk outline was a brown scent, presumably malachite's. There was definitely a magenta hint amongst the scents on the roof.
Ah ah. Magenta. Et je crois que c'est tout ce qu'on avait. Bleu marine, tilleul. Est-ce qu'on a du magenta? On a du magenta du cimetière qu'on peut comparer, hein.
I could tell that my killer had been here.
Et donc, hop, on peut récupérer
The
les
navy blue scent was strong.
les
and
odeurs
distinct.
en double-cliquant dessus. C'est vrai, j'avais oublié ça. Hop.
Nobby's teal scent reeked of tobacco.
L'odeur tilleul, c'est magenta. L'odeur marron, c'est
The earthy
malachite.
brown scent of malachite was unmistakably the scent of a troll.
Et
The magenta traces were too weak to be accurately memorized.
mais on sait que c'était l'odeur
I could tell
de
that my
notre
killer had been
assassin.
here.
Alors on ne peut se changer en loup que dans les écrans dans lesquels il n'y a pas de témoins, évidemment, ou de personnes qui ne savent pas qu'on est des loups-garous. Donc là, ça passe parce qu'il y a la gargouille qui s'en moque un peu, mais on va pas pouvoir le faire dans tous les écrans du jeu, évidemment. Si on retourne au Saturnalia, on peut voir notre propre mort. C'est là que nous sommes morts après la cinématique.
Having a chalk outline outside just didn't put people in the mood to gamble. It was probably the only time in my life I'd had an effect on high society. I couldn't think of a good reason to erase.
Ah, même dialogue, tiens. Et là, il y a de la
There was
mousse.
some kind of moss on the ground where I had been killed. It obviously didn't grow here, which means it came from somewhere else. The
Aha.
question was where.
Donc nous voilà avec un peu d'indice. Ça, c'est du bon travail de détective. Transformons-nous en loulou.
Down by the river, the smell of the ankh was... Oh, I don't know. It was pretty bad anyway.
Mais surtout, magenta avec des points brillants.
The magenta trail led to the site of my murder. I guess it must be the murderer's trail.
Donc avec ça,
The green scent smelled like vegetation. The scent was too faint to remember.
on va pouvoir utiliser l'odeur magenta sur la traînée qu'a laissé notre assassin.
It smelled exactly the same. The magenta... I get...
Ah ah. Et bien alors, hop. Et on va pouvoir suivre la
I
traînée.
followed my murderer's trail back to the Temple of Small Gods.
Et donc l'odeur vient directement à la verrière.
I was on the other side of a stained glass window with some kind of angel on it.
Et cette verrière, on la connaît bien, c'est la verrière qui était
I
derrière
could see that someone was
Gobe
on
la
the
Lune.
outside of the window. I was confident the silhouette belonged to Mooncalf.
Ah. Magenta avec des points brillants.
The trail led to the Temple of Small Gods. Then I lost it.
Donc c'est typiquement notre assassin, hein.
I was sure it was the same scent.
C'est la même odeur que nous avons ici. Alors il est peut-être nécessaire d'aller voir un peu ce qui se passe du côté de Gobe la Lune. Et du temple des petits dieux. On va y retourner. J'ai toujours aimé cette musique-là du temple des petits dieux. Est-ce que Gobe la Lune nous dit quelque chose de
I have
plus?
some more questions.
Ask them, if you must.
Did your church buy that window?
We are not a church.
Ouais, c'est le même dialogue que la dernière fois.
Now let me get...
Ouais, ça on avait vu ça déjà dans le premier acte.
Well,
Je suis pas sûr que je puisse me transformer en loup ici.
I didn't want to transform in such an exposed area.
Ouais. Alors, est-ce qu'il faut aller voir Malaclypse?
I need your help again, Malaclypse.
They'll all need my help sooner or later. They just don't know it yet.
Je suis pas sûr finalement qu'il puisse nous aider.
I'll have to... The truth...
Intéressant. Alors, on va faire un peu de sniff-sniff un peu partout, voir ce qu'on peut récupérer. Hein.
When I returned to my office for the first time since my murder, a man was already there. I knew he was a man because Corporal Nobbs was the only person in Ankh-Morpork who has to carry a letter to confirm his species. He's the kind of man you get itchy from just talking to. There must be something here. Hello, Nobby. You're alive? I was just cleaning out your desk. Yes, of everything of value. Didn't they bury you? Rumors of my death have been slightly exaggerated. Meaning I'm not dead, I just got buried.
Yeah, don't tell me the details.
Suit yourself. Nice crowbar you're using to jimmy open my drawers.
Yeah, I sort of borrowed it from the evidence room.
That's okay. I sort of borrowed it from a cart.
Oh, I searched Reagan's body. There were 2 tiny bite marks on it.
Really? I guess it was more suspicious than you thought.
Well, I ought to go. Looks like you don't need your things collecting.
How goes the case?
The counterweight killings? Oh, still not much progress. They wouldn't let me investigate it if they thought there would be.
How many murders do you guys think there are?
3. One of the patrician's clerks, the reader of esoteric occultism up at Unseen University, and one of the city's richest merchants.
There'd be 3 more if you counted Mundy, Reagan, and Malachite.
I suppose so.
Still not convinced?
Well, Vimes isn't convinced.
Even though I've been cleared,
I have to get back to the yard.
Nobby didn't seem very comfortable around me. I didn't know if it was because of my return from the grave or because I'd caught him trying to steal everything of value that wasn't tied down. Although with Nobby, even if you tied it down, he'd steal the string. The only thing I was sure of was that my next step was to look into the counterweight killings. I had a feeling I wasn't going to like what I found.
Il y a des chances, effectivement, que tu n'aimes pas ce que tu trouves, Newton. Qu'est-ce que t'as écrit? Les meurtres du marchand, le meurtre du lecteur, d'occultisme aux ésotérisme et le meurtre du clerc du patricien. Et avec ça, on peut normalement reprendre le pied de biche, mais comme le jeu bug, du coup, on est censé le récupérer à ce moment-là. Mais il y a un bug dans cette version-là du jeu, je trouve ça rigolo. Transformons-nous. Alors, beaucoup d'odeurs.
Around the door was a strong, dark cyan odor with an earthy overtone.
Ça,
The dark cyan scent was strong and earthy, with a hint of something potent about it.
potent. Donc on a du cyan, on a de la brume violette.
There was something about the purple scent that reminded me of werewolves.
Ah ah. On a des traces de marron.
The maroon scent reminded me of iron somehow.
Du sang, peut-être. Ça sent le fer.
There was a faint... I didn't know...
La brume violette, il y a le
The
nuage de
cloud of teal-colored
Tiote.
scent was the smell of tobacco and petty theft. Definitely nobbies.
C'est chicard, traces de marron. Et je crois qu'on a tout ce qu'il y a. Il y a très peu, en fait, d'odeurs qui nous sont utiles pour terminer le jeu. Mais ils ont quand même pris le soin de mettre des odeurs comme ça dans tous les lieux du jeu où on pouvait se transformer, et ils ont fait en sorte que ce soit cohérent avec l'histoire. Donc ouais, je trouve qu'ils ont fait quand même un sacré bon travail à ce niveau-là. Retournons au perroquet octarine. Et là, normalement...
Wanted, bedmaker and
Voilà.
laundryman for unseen university. $2 for each day survived. Contact Mrs. Foames at the new hall.
Et c'est ça qui déclenche l'université invisible sur la carte, alors qu'on a déjà parlé de l'université invisible, hein, évidemment, mais Chicard vient de nous en parler, mais on ne déclenche pas l'université invisible. Et je trouve ça, à l'époque, ça m'avait bloqué pendant très longtemps, parce que au bout d'un moment, il n'y a pas d'autre lieu de débloquer, et il faut penser à revoir un peu les éléments comme ça pour en voir un peu. Alors, on a du maquillage.
Sapphire had a collection of troll cosmetics, a granite filing stone, some colored sand, and various bottles. It all looked like junk to me.
Alors, qu'est-ce qu'on a d'autre? Le
The mirror
miroir.
was a sad indictment of Sapphire's misconception that there was something glamorous about her job. What do you know? I can see my face in the mirror.
Je crois pas qu'il y ait quoi que ce soit à récupérer ici. Changeons-nous en loup-garou pour voir un peu les odeurs. Alors, de l'odeur de pomme.
The apple-colored scent wasn't entirely unpleasant.
Ok. Un pâté de cyan vif.
The cyan scent was distinct and potent.
Ah ah! Du parfum de troll. Il nous disait ça aussi sur une odeur. Mais cyan foncé. Non. Rien de plus. C'est peut-être le parfum de. Ça, c'est le.
stench was coming from a bottle of perfume.
C'est le parfum de saphir. Le cyan foncé.
Dark cyan was the most prevalent smell in the dressing room. There was a booming bass quality to the scent.
Et donc ça, le cyan foncé, c'est vraisemblablement saphir. Hop, et en associant normalement...
The main smell in
Voilà.
the dressing room was the same as the scent near the door in my office. It was definitely sapphires.
Et donc, comme Saphir est venu à la fin de l'acte précédent nous déposer le mot pour aller voir Ferma, c'est normal qu'il y ait son odeur encore près de notre bureau, ce qui nous permet de l'associer. Et je trouve ça assez cool de leur part qu'ils aient pris le soin de faire ce détail-là, hein, dans l'écriture du jeu. En reniflant du coup le parfum...
The perfume was something called KC2. obviously intended for trolls.
On peut choper la bouteille de parfum, hein, Calvin Klein. On en aura besoin pour une énigme un peu plus tard dans le jeu. Pour, vous en doutez, hein, suivre quelqu'un au nez, hein, à la trace, sans danger. Dans la chambre de Mundi, qu'y a-t-il?
There was a bold scent of navy blue in the air.
Alors, le bleu marine, ça, on l'avait déjà.
I couldn't be sure who the navy blue scent belonged to.
Ah. Moi, je pense que c'est Vimer. Forte trace de tilleul avec une pincée sur le côté. C'est chicard, évidemment. Quand c'est du tilleul, c'est chicard.
I guess Nobby's scent had lingered on from when he was here several days ago. I had a feeling his scent was as good a lingerer as Nobby was. The teal... There was a hint of an apple-colored scent in the air.
Alors, un soupçon de pomme. Ça, on l'a eu aussi, la pomme. Pomme.
The apple scent here was the same as in Sapphire's dressing room. I guess it belonged to Mankin, the half-elf barman.
Ça semble logique, comme on sait qu'il est venu descendre Mundi de sa corde. Encore cette odeur de magenta, et l'odeur de magenta, c'est l'odeur de notre assassin. On peut le confirmer. Marron, parfum de troll, magenta.
My killer had been here, but were they responsible for Mundy's murder?
C'est une très bonne question.
Around where Mundy's body had lain was a dark blue scent.
Une odeur bleu foncé, qui est l'odeur de Mundi.
Where Mundy had been in his room, there was a dark blue smell.
Et puis là, il y a encore de la pomme ici, du coup, qu'on avait déjà vu. Ok. Donc, on a bien la même odeur de magenta dans la chambre de Mundi. Ce qui nous laisse effectivement à croire que il y a quelque chose ici. Au niveau du pont larmoyant, là où il y avait, là où Regine est mort, qu'est-ce que nous avons?
The smell of the ankh was too strong for me to pick out the magenta scent well.
Il y a encore du magenta ici.
There was no mistaking it. Even against the reek of the ankh, it was the scent of my killer.
Donc encore le même tueur, hein, qui a tué Regine.
The reek of the ankh was at its most sickening.
Ça doit être détestable pour les chiens et pour les loups-garous de vivre constamment dans la ville d'Ankh-Morpork avec la puanteur de la zone. Alors, les toits on a fait. Le guet, je suis pas sûr qu'on puisse en faire quelque chose. Est-ce que j'ai loupé quelque chose? Je crois pas, hein, au niveau pianteur vert. J'ai suivi la trace magenta. Ok. Je suis pas sûr qu'il y ait quoi que ce soit. Voilà. Le Saturnalia est fermé maintenant. Mausolée. Est-ce que ça vaut le coup d'aller au mausolée? Je sais plus, tiens.
Turning into a wolf wasn't something I was entirely comfortable with yet. I was trying to restrict myself to just when it was really necessary.
D'accord, intéressant. Ah, insérer le CD1, vraiment? Ah. Je suis pas sûr du coup que le... Non, on va pas... Donc cette scène-là est exclusivement sur le CD1, c'est intéressant. Retournons voir Carlotta.
I'm just as thrilled. Who would say I like to see this time?
Ah, merci pour le passage. Ouais, Discworld Noir, on en avait... j'en ai réentendu parler sur Mastodon récemment et ça m'a donné envie de le refaire comme il joue pas Comme il est assez rare et qu'on ne voit pas toujours jouer, il faut bidouiller un peu pour arriver à une version qui marche sur les PC. Donc, ouais, merci. Puis, si jamais vous voulez voir les autres parties, je les ai uploadées sur ma chaîne YouTube. Si jamais vous êtes intéressé pour revoir les autres parties, si vous voulez mettre ça en fond pendant que vous bossez, par exemple. Bon courage. On va demander à voir
I'd
Carlotta.
like to see Carlotta. Is she home?
I will go and check.
Elle va être très contente de nous voir. Et pendant que le majordome... Ah bah voilà, de Mastodon. Ah bah, vous avez peut-être... Je prends note pour les votes. Ouais, je mets beaucoup d'archives sur mon YouTube, parce que Twitch ne garde les vidéos qu'une semaine. Donc quand c'est des vidéos que je veux garder en archive, je les mets sur YouTube.
While the butler was gone, I slipped into my wolf form. A purple scent stretched across the hallway, and I instantly knew it was Carlotta.
Sauf
That
que...
wasn't all. The richness of her odor told me something else.
C'était une bourge. Non,
Just like me.
c'était une loup-garou, évidemment. C'est elle qui nous a changés.
Carlotta is not in her room.
Take a message. Tell her to meet me at the Café Ankh later tonight.
As Sir wishes.
If Carlotta was the werewolf who infected me, I wanted to speak to her as soon as possible. Sheesh. You'd think a guy could take one kiss and wake up the same shape next day, wouldn't you?
Effectivement. D'ailleurs, on va revenir aussi au manoir.
Definitely following me.
Parce que je me demande
Like to see this time.
si c'est là où le comte...
Can I see the Count?
I am not in a position to know how good your vision is, but you may see the Count, which I believe is what Sir actually meant in Sir's untutored way.
The Count's health was getting
Évidemment, le jeu de mots marche en anglais avec l'opposition entre Can et May.
Is that you? I knew you'd come for me sooner or later. Is it time? Is it time already? It's been such a long time, hasn't it? We've had fun together, haven't we? Soon enough.
Count.
Soon enough, my dear. Soon enough.
Count, it's Luton.
Ah, et voilà la mort.
Hear you.
Why not?
It's almost his time.
I've seen some scary things in my time. I've seen men driven mad by money or...
Alors, j'ai mis beaucoup de temps à comprendre ce qu'il avait autour du cou dans le jeu. C'est un sablier, en fait.
I've seen Nobby getting out
Un
of
peu
the
comme ceux qu'on voit dans le Discworld 2.
Discover what terror was until I found myself talking to a 7-foot-high skeleton with a scythe. Your death!
Am I? You know, I wondered why I was carrying the scythe around.
Am I?
Are you what? A selfish, bitter man who has yet to squander his one last chance at redemption?
Am I dead?
No. It's not your time.
I thought you might have missed me the other day when I was stabbed and you've only just got around to me.
I'm famously punctual.
So why are you here?
I've come out for the Count, so to speak.
Oh, well, that's a shame. I was hoping to ask him a few questions.
You seem remarkably calm for one who's just seen the defeater of empires, the swallower of oceans, the thief of years, the ultimate reality, the harvester of mankind, and the assassin against whom no lock will hold. That's me, because of long sentences.
It's been that kind of week. How long has he got?
That depends on you.
On me? I thought our time was allocated by the fates.
It is true that fate is the ultimate master of life and death. But even fate takes a back seat to the laws of narrative causality.
I don't understand.
Really? Who said you were supposed to?
You might give me a clue.
Let's just say that the actions of one person may change the way the whole story is told.
I don't understand.
Don't worry, it'll all become clear to you at the end.
Et donc du coup, effectivement, là, ça devient un dialogue assez intéressant à 3 parties où en fait, on va pouvoir poser des questions à la mort.
How come you're here?
I came on my horse.
What is it? A skeletal horse whose hooves spark with flames with each step?
No. Just my horse. I call him Binky.
Binky.
And he's not a skeleton?
He happens to be very well fed and looked after, thank you very much.
I still don't understand why you're here. I mean, you're death. Shouldn't you be everywhere?
I am everywhere.
But you're here.
Yes. As well. Don't try to work it out. Even I don't fully understand it. It involves really complicated numbers.
Le comte est en train de cracher ses tripes à côté.
I'm only expected to make an actual appearance on special occasions.
And this is a special occasion?
Not yet. I've arrived ahead of time. But there's going to be a lot of business in Ankh-Morpork soon. So it doesn't hurt for me to get here a little early.
You wouldn't care to tell me more about this, I suppose?
The immediate future is not a matter on which I propose to enlighten you. No.
Alors, parlons quand même un peu de la mort. C'est un des personnages les plus connus du disque monde.
How come I can see you? Is it something to do with me being a werewolf?
In a sense. It has much more to do with certain other matters.
Such as?
Ordinarily, I am only perceived by those who are about to die.
So you are invisible? That must be useful.
I'm not invisible as such. People just can't see me. They won't allow themselves to do it. Until it's time, of course. Wizards can see me, and cats. Odd, really, but there you go.
But I can see you.
Indeed. People in a state of heightened awareness sometimes stop seeing what they expect to see and start seeing what is really there.
Like with Gaspode.
Frankly, I think your seeing me has more to do with your quest for the golden sword.
You know about that?
I've been around. I hear things.
Why should the sword be a factor?
Well, it's more to do with narrative causality, as I said.
It's not really a quest. I mean, I'm just investigating a few murders.
Believe me, I know. I was there.
Believe me, I know. C'est quoi cet effet de causalité narrative?
You mentioned narrative causality before.
Did I? I must be becoming careless.
Why? Aren't you allowed to discuss it?
It's not exactly against the rules. But it might ruin it if I told you.
Ruin what?
The story.
Alors, tant qu'on a la mort, pourquoi ne pas lui parler un peu de meurtre?
Do you know anything about Reagan's murder?
Of course.
You were there?
Well, yes. I have to be. But this is very irregular.
Of course. You know about all these murders, don't you? I mean, you're basically an accessory after the fact. Or possibly before the fact.
Young man, I am the fact.
Well, tell me everything you know.
Are you sure? It would take millions of years.
I meant about this case. We could stop anyone else from being killed.
No. Absolutely not. You can't expect me to be a witness in a murder inquiry. I'm going to take the fifth.
The fifth what?
No one ever says what fifth. They just take it. And I'll have the 6th, 7th, and 15th through 23rd. Just to be on the safe side.
So you won't tell me anything.
Ça, c'est une référence,
Oh,
ouais,
it's
qui est pas facile à comprendre
I
quand
like
on est,
to talk to a man who likes
quand on
to
est
talk.
français.
But you won't tell me anything about the murders.
I will not. Supposing that caught on. You think I want to spend every day in a witness box?
Even though Death said he wouldn't tell me anything, I had a suspicion that I might be able to learn something if I could just strip him up.
Donc
I'd have
ça,
to be careful though.
ça
The
c'est
last thing I
l'indice.
wanted was to get Death upset with me. He's
Qui-
not a guy you want as your enemy.
Ça, c'est un indice qui nous fait dire que on devra revenir pour en savoir plus sur les meurtres à un moment donné quand on en saura davantage. Et le coup de prendre le 5e, to take the fifth, en VO, dans les sous-titres français, en français ils disent comme aux US, pour aider la référence. Parce que to take the fifth, prendre le 5e, c'est faire référence au 5e article de la Constitution américaine, je crois que c'est la Constitution, qui dit qu'on a le droit, grosso modo, de garder silence et de ne pas dire quelque chose qui nous incrimine. Et donc, c'est notamment ce qu'a fait beaucoup Donald Trump. Voilà, il y a eu beaucoup de discussions là-dessus, savoir est-ce qu'un président peut prendre peut invoquer le 5e amendement pour ne pas se parjurer, en fait. Non. Et donc là, si on essaye de lui poser d'autres questions sur les meurtres contre poids, donc par exemple sur le mort du lecteur d'occultisme.
Wizards can see you, right?
Indeed.
So they know when they're going to die.
On va en
That
savoir un
is
peu plus.
also true.
So the reader of esoteric occultism must have known he was about to be murdered.
Knowing when you are going to die and knowing how are two different things.
Et donc le reste, je crois
I was
que
just thinking that I could really use some information on the merchant's murder.
il va
Fine.
rien dire.
I was just thinking about wallpaper. Was there a point you wanted to make?
Perhaps I could trap him into saying something when I knew a little more about how and where the merchant had been killed.
You know, that's very good. The way you make your voice go all tough and gritty like that. Do you have to go to elocution classes?
No.
Do you have a secret code ring or anything?
No.
Oh.
Et donc l'idée, c'est que il faut d'abord en apprendre davantage sur les mœurs pour revenir voir la mort et du coup avoir des indices
Is there
complémentaires.
anything you'd like to tell me about the murder of the patrician's clerk?
Only that he was a lot less tiresome than you and didn't have such a colorful vocabulary.
Do you know anything about
Passons
the
sur tous les meurtres. Hein.
I already told you that I could not discuss the details of my work with you.
Je crois pas qu'il puisse nous dire quoi que ce soit, c'est-à-dire Mundi.
Can't you just tell me who killed Mundy?
I won't squeal, copper. No one will ever say that death is a pigeon on a stool, you doity... you doity rodent of some sort. I say, this is fun, isn't it?
Et Malachite.
You can at least tell me why the murderer killed Reagan, Mundy, and Malachite. Surely that wouldn't be a problem.
Look, if I tell you about him, where does it stop? No.
No.
I will tell you nothing.
I think it's too late for that.
Bugger. I don't suppose you could forget I said that.
Sure. Thanks for eliminating half of my suspects. So, the murderer was male.
Yep.
That put Carlotta and Sapphire in the clear.
Et on a un indice, ça c'est fort, c'est donc bien un I et non pas un chi. Donc on connaît
Well,
son
goodbye.
pronom.
I'm sure we'll meet again.
Oh, you can be certain of it. Incidentally, I rather like your hard-boiled monologues.
You do?
Oh, yes. And of course, the way you can actually think out of the corner of your mouth, very impressive.
I didn't know I was doing it.
Oh yes. Take that, you dirty rat. Wonderful stuff. Very entertaining.
Et donc là, du coup, c'est des références au tonton flingueur. Plutôt qu'à Dirty Harry, je crois, ou enfin à Casablanca, au Faucon Maltais.
The atmosphere of menace and uncertainty.
Really?
Of course, I don't play the violin. And I can't talk out of the corners of my mouth. It's a great shame.
Donc, ok. Alors, nouvelle salle. Ah oui, c'est l'université invisible. J'étais en train de me demander, mais qu'est-ce que c'est que ce bâtiment, nouvelle salle? C'est l'université invisible. On va aller voir du côté du café Hank. Est-ce que tu peux te transformer ici? Je crois pas. Non. Dans la cave à vin, je pense pas qu'il y ait autre chose. On va quand même choper...
There was some faint traces of a light blue scent in the corner of the cellar. The scent was very weak, and I didn't think I would be able to remember it very well.
C'est
There was a lingering smell of purple.
évidemment l'odeur de deux marrons.
It was too scattered for me to remember it.
Donc on va vérifier ça. Donc l'odeur d'Ilsa, évidemment.
It was the same scent. There was a...
Évidemment. Et l'odeur bleue, c'est deux marrons, mais je sais pas si on l'a, le bleu. Je suis pas sûr qu'on le chope, l'odeur de Two Conkers dans le jeu de deux marrons. Non.
The predominant smell in the cellar was of red wine, considerably more pleasant than the smell of the river, at least.
Hop. On va prendre l'odeur du vin. Ça peut nous être utile. Je crois pas que ce soit utile. Et Carlotta est au bar.
I tried to reach you at the mansion, but you're never around when I need you.
You never need me when I'm around.
A funny thing happened to me the other day.
You arranged all this just to tell me an anecdote?
It's a funny little story. I think you'll like it.
I'm listening.
The other night, someone stuck a sword through my ribs.
Ah, it must have been someone who knew you well.
The thing is, not long afterwards, I was in my coffin thinking about it when I realized I wasn't dead.
That was lucky.
Luck was not a factor. Why did you do it, Carlotta?
Do what?
Make me a werewolf.
If I hadn't, you'd be dead. Would you prefer that?
Aha.
That's not the point, and you know it. You did something to me that was going to change who I was for the rest of my life. And you didn't even tell me.
I didn't think you'd understand. Besides, it wasn't as if I planned it.
Are you telling me you turned me into a werewolf by accident?
How long have you been a werewolf now?
Not long.
Have you felt what it's like? That force that pulls on you, that draws your attention to every jugular, pulsing with life? The irrepressible call of fresh blood? A sudden attention to the phases of the moon?
I have to fight to keep control.
We all do. Coming to a city of 1 million people, it's like a starving monkey wandering into a banana plantation. You learn to live with it.
And you decided to infect me with lycanthropy?
Infect is such a negative word. I prefer blessed.
You think this is a gift?
Of course it's a gift. It's the greatest gift I could give to someone. And I chose you.
Why?
You're a smart man, Luton. Figure it out.
Alors... Miscellaneous... bijoux... Épée en
I
or.
take it you don't know where the golden sword is now.
Of course not. Do you think I wouldn't tell you?
Frankly, my dear, I don't know what to think.
Des meurtres, ça nous intéresse pas. Contact des suspects. On peut parler de Jasper
Tell me
Horst.
about Horst.
What's to tell? He's a treasure hunter, as ruthless as they come. He'd sell his own mother to get what he wanted. Rumor has it that he pushed his father off the mountain when he was just a pebble.
Have you had any dealings with him in the past?
Occasionally. Horst is the kind of troll you try not to work with unless you really have to.
Ouais. Murders, je pense que là il n'y a rien. Contact est suspect. Cali. Carlotta. Est-ce qu'il y a autre chose à lui dire? On me dit tué par les pieds. Carlotta is a werewolf.
So, how many people have you killed?
I'm not that kind of a werewolf.
I suspected you were a killer even when you were just a woman. Now I'm certain of it.
I was never just a woman.
You expect me to believe you've never killed anyone?
I have a lot of self-control.
It didn't seem that way when we kissed.
Don't mistake passion for a lack of self-control.
Do
Ouais.
all werewolves see the world the same?
Everyone sees the world differently, Luton. That's what life is all about.
I meant the colors. Do you see the same colors I do?
What color is the smell of the river Ankh to you?
A kind of cacophonous bright green.
I guess we do then.
Mind if I asked you some questions about smells?
You say the sweetest things.
Whoever killed me had a distinctive magenta scent. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?
Doesn't ring any bells.
There was something else about it. Like a kind of fluorescent sparkle.
Like a greenish yellow purple?
That's the one.
That's octarine.
Octarine. Sounds like a type of fruit.
It's the 8th color of the spectrum.
8th?
The basic color of which other colors are merely pale shadows impinging on conventional reality. The color of magic.
Conventional reality?
Or what passes for conventional on the Discworld.
What's that supposed to mean?
If I always knew what I meant, I'd be a genius.
So what smells of octarine?
Anything magical.
Then how come I've never seen it before? There must be 100 magical things in the city. Unseen University should glow like a sparkler.
Mortals can't see it, only wizards. Although we can smell it, of course.
That doesn't explain why Unseen University doesn't reek of it.
Well, it fades quickly in sunlight, and in extreme cases, walks away.
Donc il y a de la magie dans l'odeur de
Where
notre
can I
assassin.
find you?
I'll be around.
That's not very helpful.
What can I say? I go where I want to, with anybody I want. I just happen to be that kind of girl.
This isn't over, Carlotta.
I hope not. We don't have to be enemies, Luton.
We'll never be friends.
Let's not fight, Luton. We can work together, recover the sword together.
I don't know who you are anymore.
I'm the same girl I ever was, Luton. It's you that's changed.
You're telling me.
Ouais.
You know, Luton, you don't have to work with me. You don't have to say anything, and you don't have to do anything. Not a thing. Oh, maybe just howl. You know how to howl, don't you, Luton? You just pull your jaws apart and blow.
After Carlotta had left, I sat alone in the cafe, thinking about my problems. As bad as it seemed, my life was still better than it was a few years ago. Back then, I would have sat alone in the cafe, drinking through my problems.
Effectivement, il y a du mieux. Hop. Sam est là, mais
Sameo, Mr. Luton.
je suis pas sûr qu'il y ait autre chose qu'on
How's
puisse lui
business?
dire.
It's not. You haven't not since that. Oh, that's so.
C'est les mêmes dialogues.
Thanks. Nope.
Je suis pas sûr qu'on puisse faire autre chose. Il y a pas mal de personnages qui sont là que pour le décor et qui n'apportent pas grand chose pour la suite de l'histoire, et leurs dialogues se renouvellent pas nécessairement. Alors après, les dialogues sont si bien écrits que je préfère encore des dialogues peu nombreux mais bien écrits que trop nombreux et puis moins évidents, quoi. Bref. Est-ce qu'on peut faire quelque chose avec cette verrière? Est-ce qu'il y a Gobe la Lune, mais je me rappelle plus exactement.
I could see that I was
Parce que là, on peut rien faire ici.
The trail then I'd lost the trail.
Ah, on peut rien faire avec ça. Hein. Là, j'entame.
I'd found a matching scent. I'd lost.
Ouais, on va rien pouvoir faire ici, je pense, pour l'instant. Donc, allons voir l'université invisible. L'un des lieux les plus truculents des jeux Discworld Noir.
University was positioned along a large stretch in the River Ankh, and its campus was convoluted enough that it was hard to tell where the university ended and the city began. It would be wrong to say that the people of the city respected the wizards of the university, and it would be wrong to say that they hated them. In fact, all you could really say was that both the citizens and the wizards were glad of the wall that stopped them from having to socialize on a daily basis.
On va voir peu de choses, malheureusement, de l'université invisible. Néanmoins, la musique est cool.
Mrs. Foames,
Yes, I am she. What do you want?
may I come in?
No, you may not.
I love the job.
Is that a fact? Very well, you may enter, but wipe your feet. I won't have the help messing up the carpets.
Poum. Ça a l'air d'être une maître femme, comme on dit, hein, une maîtresse femme, Mr. Baines.
Now, you've come for the job, Mr.
Luton. And yes, I am interested in the job.
Well, as the head chambermaid, the decisions about hiring staff falls on my shoulders. Do you have any experience?
Oh.
No, but I'm a fast learner.
Well, the pay is $2 a day. There are no perks. If you want it, it's yours.
Bah, tant mieux.
Can you tell me about Unseen University?
It's not the business of help to discuss their employers.
D'accord. Est-ce que je peux au moins parler un peu des meurtres? Parce qu'il y a eu un meurtre là récemment. Meurtre du lecteur.
Is it dangerous working here? Only I heard that one of the wizards was murdered.
Don't let that bother you, Mr. Luton. The affairs of the staff are not our concern.
You don't think I'm in any danger?
Goodness, no. The odd death is just the natural course of campus politics, I'm afraid. It's a shocking turn of affairs, but we mustn't question it. Dead men's pointy boots, and all that.
Chaussures pointues d'un homme mort.
Now, do you want the job or not?
Intéressant.
Dead men's pointy boots?
Yes. No questions asked as to the manner of their emptying, if you know what I mean.
I see.
Ça c'est encore quelque chose que je dis beaucoup. Chaussures pointues d'un homme mort.
I'll take the job.
Mais je prends le
You
boulot.
can start now by making the beds. The dorm is through that door. I advise you to leave before the students get back.
Why?
Boys will be boys, Mr. Luton. And apprentice wizards are the worst kind of boys imaginable.
Ah, c'est comme des étudiants en droit du coup. Ok.
I guess I'd better get to work.
Very good.
Très bien, nous voilà enfin dans l'université invisible. On va pouvoir faire des...
The lair of the redoubtable Mrs. Foames, the head chambermaid.
Non, bah non. Hop.
Mrs. Foames?
Ouais, on peut rappeler
Well,
Mr.
what do you
Bates.
want? I haven't got time to waste talking to you, you know.
I guess I'd better get to...
Ouais, je crois pas qu'on puisse parler d'autre chose. Donc, voyons voir un peu ce qui se passe ici.
The students had their very own unlockers to keep their possessions in. This locker seemed to wobble slightly. Unlike the other unlockers, this one seemed to be levitating a few inches above the ground. Probably one of the students' cantrips that hadn't worn off yet. As for the unlocker's contents, the less said about them, the better.
Casier abîmé, casier à l'arôme intempestif, casier solide. Casier abîmé, qu'est-ce
This
qui se passe?
unlocker seemed rugged, if slightly beaten up. I searched the unlocker, but found nothing I wanted to think too hard about.
Ok. Casier à l'arôme intempestif.
Even as a human, I could smell something very disturbing coming from this particular unlocker. Given the smell of the unlocker, I was grateful it was locked.
Casier solide.
This sturdy-looking unlocker seemed in better condition than the others. The only interesting thing I could find in the unlocker was some books.
Qui est déjà très bien.
I guess the rumors about the students weren't true. They did do some studying.
Ça aussi, je me rappelais. Il leur est arrivé d'étudier.
What have we got? Occult primer, monster fun grimoire, Fullamyth, the theory of thaumic imponderability, lost temples of the great Nev.
Ah ah. Les temples perdus de la nef. Ça, c'est intéressant. Je crois qu'il faudra faire quelque chose avec ça, mais... Est-ce que je peux en savoir plus avec ça? Je sais qu'il y a... Je crois me rappeler qu'il y a quelque chose à faire avec... Ah, je ne me rappelle plus exactement. Les lits. Y a-t-il quelque chose?
Watch how fast I go. For a brief moment, I considered actually making the beds. Fortunately, good sense prevailed.
Alors, qu'est-ce qu'on a ici? On a un tableau octarine.
The octarine board appeared blank to my eyes, but I had a feeling there was something written on it I couldn't see. A few sticks of chalk, a type of chalk made from octarine carbonate, were resting on the top of the board. Carlotta had told me that only wizards could see octarine, which explained why the board looked blank to me. She also said that as a wolf I could smell octarine, which opened up a new avenue of inquiry. I tried to write on the octarine board with the chalk, but I couldn't see what I was writing. The chalk marks were invisible to my eyes.
Mais évidemment, si on se change en loup...
The dorm was full of the jangling sense of the students. But the most surprising thing was the octarine board.
Quelle idée sympathique quand même.
I smelt the words.
La couleur de la magie, c'est le premier roman du Disque Monde, et donc il y a des références très régulières à ça.
It seemed to be a list of subjects the young apprentices were studying. Occult perils of lace making, basic myth and monsters, principles of thaumic imponderability, and temples of the great Nev. Under the list of subjects were the words, "You must read a chapter on each before the next lecture."
Et donc l'idée, c'est qu'à un moment donné, on va devoir écrire sur ce tableau pour obliger les étudiants à aller chercher un bouquin qui va nous en apprendre plus sur quelque chose que l'on cherche. Mais je me rappelle plus exactement ce que l'on fait avec ça.
Not in front of the porter, I'd definitely get thrown out.
Ah. Effectivement, il y a le concierge.
The door led to the library of the unseen university.
Et malheureusement, on ne pourra pas accéder à cette bibliothèque.
Students and wizards only beyond this point.
On n'aura malheureusement pas l'opportunité d'aller voir cette bibliothèque-là.
I tried to head down to the library, but the porter stopped me.
Wizards only in the library, thank you.
The burly porter had inflexible written all over him in large ironclad letters.
Parlons au
What are you doing
concierge.
here?
The name's Luton. I'm working for Mrs. Foames.
You're the new bed maker, eh? Well, you can't come any further than this, Luton. Wizards only in the library, thank you.
Wizards only?
Well, wizards, apprentices, and orangutans.
Are you a porter?
No, I'm a bledlow. And there's a difference, all right?
Le bledlow, ça n'a pas été traduit, et même encore maintenant, je comprends pas trop ce que c'est censé être. Je vais le chercher, tiens, j'avais pas eu la curiosité jusqu'à présent de le faire. Qu'est-ce qu'un bledlow? comment c'est traduit tout ça? Un Bledlow. Un village anglais. D'accord, certes. Mais ça m'enseigne pas des masses. Parce qu'il n'a pas l'air d'être un village anglais, même s'il a l'air anglais. Translate. Bledlow en anglais seulement. Ok. Bon, bah, ma foi. Discutons un peu avec le Bledlow.
What's a Bledlow?
Voilà, merci. Merci, Lieutenant, de poser les bonnes questions.
After the students,
Look after them.
just like the watch looks after the city.
You throw your weight around and beat them senseless when they do something wrong?
It's about the size of it, yeah. You don't mess with the lobsters.
Lobsters?
Just a nickname we've picked up over the years.
Why?
If you see us get our hands on a student, you'll understand.
You make it sound like you're hunting them down.
Of course, all students are guilty of everything.
Il s'entendrait bien avec Vimer, lui. Ils sont si terribles que ça, ces étudiants?
Where are all the students?
They're off playing Unseen University Challenge against the students from the Assassin's Guild.
What does that involve?
I don't know. Given the way most sports are conducted round here, it probably involves a very careful inspection of half the pubs in Ankh-Morpork.
What makes you say that?
Heard of the City and Guilds?
No.
When the guilds started setting up their own colleges, there was a lot of rivalry between the various students.
Rivalry?
Well, the university students used to be ambushed by gangs from the guilds, really.
Used to be.
Well, given the faculty's relaxed attitude to sudden death, most of the staff preferred dead students on account of them being easier to teach. But I gather the guilds decided that enough was enough because all the bodies around the place made it very hard to open doors.
Ça se
So what did they
défend.
do?
They founded the City and Guilds match. I think the idea was to carry a football right from the outskirts of the Shades to the Tower of Art, goals being scored by kicking the ball through the door of certain landmarks.
What sort of landmarks?
The sort with names like the Mended Drum, the Bunch of Grapes. The scoring team was bought drinks by the other teams, you see. And after a few years, the Arch-Chancellor ruled that only one goal could be scored in each pub since the match had for 3 years running. It had gone on for a month.
What's this got to do with Unseen University Challenge?
Well, the university tends to leave the City and Guilds match to the guilds. They prefer a more cerebral challenge.
Such as going straight to the pub, not passing go, and not bothering to come back.
That'd be my guess, yes.
So they're not coming back.
Well, they'll be back. They need to come to the library to get their course books.
Et donc ça, c'est un autre indice qui nous fait dire qu'on peut utiliser la bibliothèque par le truchement des étudiants. Et le coup des étudiants qui causent des morts en ville à cause de leur fête, c'est un vrai événement historique de l'histoire médiévale et de l'histoire de la Renaissance. On sait qu'à Paris, par exemple, les écoliers faisaient très régulièrement des bagarres où il y avait souvent des morts. François Villon, on sait, était dans ces troupes d'écoliers. Voilà, bon, c'était très violent être écolier à l'époque. C'est pour ça qu'ils avaient très mauvaise réputation, encore plus que maintenant. Et c'était à raison, bon, évidemment. Parlons un peu du meurtre du sorcier.
I hear the reader of esoteric occultism was murdered.
Yep. Old
Yep.
Mathan was so full of poison, even the words.
Le Brimborion, un personnage classique des disques mondes.
That's right. Right here in the Widdershins wing of the university.
You don't sound concerned.
I just keep an eye on the students. The wizards can do what they like to each other.
Certes. Et donc, effectivement, Brimborion a été empoisonné dans l'aile rétrograde.
Who do you think killed Mathan?
Well, that shouldn't be hard to work out, eh? Just see who fills his shoes.
You think it was an internal matter?
I don't see why not. No one else has got a reason to be killing wizards, have they, eh?
Comme disait Madame Baines, dead man's pointy boots.
Have you heard the expression, dead men's pointy boots?
Of course.
What does it mean?
Well, towards the upper levels of magic, where the number of positions get few and far between, wizards advance primarily by the untimely death of their bosses.
And the pointy boots?
Well, the point is, no questions are asked as to the emptying of those pointy boots.
N'est-ce pas? C'est un peu comme l'université aujourd'hui. Hein. Bref. Avec ça, on en sait déjà un peu plus sur la mort de...
Who would say I like to see this time?
cet individu. Voyons voir.
In a sense.
Essayons de faire chanter la mort. Parce que maintenant on sait que Brimborion a été empoisonné.
Can you tell me anything about Matham's murder?
I already told you that I cannot discuss the details of my work with you.
Ah, il refuse. Est-ce que l'on peut...
Does dead men's pointy boots mean anything to you?
They use it at the Unseen University, do they not?
So I understand.
It is accurate. The wizards do have pointy boots. It's traditional.
I think it has some other meaning.
That would explain why I have heard it mentioned in the guilds.
Ah
Their boots are seldom pointy.
certes.
Well,
Effectivement. Est-ce que l'on peut parler de Brimborion à Madame
Mrs.
Baines?
Holmes?
Well, what I...
Dead men's pointy...
Yeah.
Ouais. Ça, c'est pas ça que je voulais dire. Brimborion.
The wizard was poisoned, I hear.
I think you could use a little less gossip and a lot more work, Mr. Luton.
Ok, on va pas en savoir
I
davantage.
guess...
Very.
Très bien, très bien, très bien. Alors, que peut-on faire? Qu'est-ce qui se passe au guet? Est-ce que Chicard peut nous en dire un peu plus?
Back behind the desk, I see.
Hello, Luton.
Ah, bloc-notes.
I found out about the murder at the university.
Really?
His name was Matham, and they found him poisoned in the Widdershin's wing. Tell Vimes.
Mr. Vimes?
Believe it or not, I want to get to the bottom of this case as much as he does.
I don't think anyone could want to get to the bottom of a case more than Mr. Vimes.
These are interesting times.
Certes. Est-ce qu'il peut nous en parler
What about this merchant that you said
du
was
marchand?
murdered?
Est-ce que ça va nous débloquer quelque chose?
I can't discuss that with you.
Well, you must be able to tell me something.
The guilds like to keep these disputes to themselves. You know what I mean? You'll have to talk to the Merchants Guild.
Ah ah! Guilde des marchands. Enfin, le patricien.
You mentioned the murder of one of the patrician's clerks before.
Est-ce que ça nous débloque quelque chose?
Yeah,
What can you tell me about that?
that he's dead.
That's all your in-depth inquiries turned up?
Not as easy as that, you know, making sure someone's really dead. He might have just been playing dead. Anyway, he was killed in the palace.
You must know more than that. Or is it that you can't tell me about it?
If you want to know more, you'll have to find out yourself.
Sorry. Never would have guessed it, Nobby.
Alors...
I guess I'll see you around, Nobby.
Il y a des
I'll
petits
try to
bugs
avoid
même en
it, though.
VO
Let's
de...
face it, Nobby was no oil painting. Unless someone did it with their foot.
Il y a des petits problèmes de code dans les répliques. Il y a des répliques qui se coupent prématurément. Il y en a qui qui passent pour des dialogues alors que c'est des pensées réciproquement. Donc s'il y a un remake un jour, j'espère qu'ils nettoieront un peu le code. En tout cas, ça nous a ouvert la guilde des marchands. J'étais très
The
content.
Merchants Guild was the youngest of the Ankh-Morpork guilds, founded in self-defense by the city's traders and shopkeepers, when they realized their role in the grand scheme of things was to be robbed. Robbing fat merchants, it seemed, was a perfectly socially acceptable, even heroic thing to do. Consequently, they weren't the friendliest of guilds either. I wasn't holding out much hope that they'd help me. Evening.
Usually is when the sun sets.
Is everyone in this city a smart aleck?
Who's he?
He used to be a regular at the Mended Drum. He made a reputation as a know-it-all.
Used to be?
The Mended Drum is a bad place to use the phrase no.
Where did they find his body?
The Shades. And the Diesel Gate. His kidney down a well in Dolly's sister's, I think. Bits of his innards all over the place. Sounds like he had a lot of guts.
J'étais très content aussi qu'à l'époque le Discworld Noir prenne autant de temps de développer cette histoire de guilde. Ça a toujours été l'une des choses que j'ai trouvé le plus truculent dans le Discworld. Et là, du coup, on parle de guilde des assassins, il y a la guilde des marchands, la guilde des archéologues, la guilde de je sais plus quoi, la guilde des sculpteurs à un moment donné. Bref, voilà, ça fait partie de quelque chose que je trouve très, très intéressant. Discutons un peu avec le
So
gardien.
how did you end up working on the door?
Who? There's only so many good positions to go around.
I take it this isn't one of them.
Oh, it's not that bad. I get to hear all the interesting news with this job.
And
Uh-huh.
has anything interesting happened recently?
Oh, yes.
Such as?
We got a new kettle.
Oh.
Much nicer than the one with the leak that we used to use.
You boiled water in a kettle with a hole?
Well, we made a lot of steam anyway. It wouldn't stay in the cups, though.
And that's the most exciting thing that's happened here.
Oh, exciting. If you want exciting, you should see the new color scheme in the coin shaving room.
Come on. Someone was murdered. Wasn't that exciting?
Oh, sure.
Why didn't you mention that?
A guild policy. We're not to discuss the incident with outsiders.
Ce qui paraît logique. Mais d'abord, c'est quoi cette histoire de rasage de pièces de monnaie?
What's all this about coin shaving?
You haven't heard of coin shaving?
No.
I didn't even know they grew hair.
Well, you take a coin and you carefully shave off some of the gold, which you can then melt down and sell.
Oh.
Easy money.
I think I see a problem with that.
Yeah?
Well, I didn't think there was any gold in Ankh-Morpork dollars.
Well, there isn't. Not anymore. We kind of shaved them too much.
So what do you use the coin shaving room for?
We keep the kettle there. Of course, superbly.
That's why you redecorated it?
No, we used to keep the old kettle there, only all the wallpaper fell down.
Qui est assez logique. Cette histoire de rasage de pièces, je sais pas si vous savez, mais c'est une vraie anecdote. C'est pour ça que, d'ailleurs, les pièces que l'on a, nos pièces de monnaie, et c'était le cas des francs aussi à l'époque, sont striées sur le côté, parce qu'avant, c'était une pratique que l'on faisait, on limait le bord des pièces pour récupérer un peu du métal, de l'or ou de l'argent, pour le revendre ensuite sans altérer la pièce. Et donc du coup, la solution qu'on a trouvée, c'est de faire des stries sur le côté. Comme ça, si on lime, on voit en fait que les stries ont disparu et donc que la pièce a été sabotée. Donc, voilà. C'est assez rigolo. Parlons du règlement de la guilde.
I don't understand. Why is it guild policy not to discuss the murder?
Well, as you probably know, we formed the guild to stop the dreadful habit of visiting heroes robbing all the fat merchants.
Yeah, I heard that.
Ah, yonder lies a fat merchant, they cry, using that special landlord a flagon of your finest ale hero talk. Let us relieve him of some of his ill-gotten gains. Pon my scalliard. Next thing you know, they've robbed you blind. That's the thanks you get for years of service.
Years of service, carefully mixing sand in the sugar and switching the number plates of the donkey carts.
Hey, that's a very stilted view. What about all the other top-quality bargains we offer?
Ah, yes. All those once-in-a-lifetime, never-to-be-repeated, absolutely didn't fall off the back of a cart offers?
Exactly. Plus, we keep the economy of the city running.
By giving small sums to the less smelly beggars?
Annually, yes.
You were telling me about guild policy.
Ah, yes. Anyway, it was decided that it would be the Merchants Guild's policy to fully further the aims of its members, advertise the civic charms of Ankh-Morpork, and beat 7 kinds of hell out of anyone with a leather loincloth.
Advertise the civic charms of Ankh-Morpork?
Are you saying you don't like Ankh-Morpork?
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Absolutely not. I heard what you guys did to Castroaster.
Damn, he got tired real quick.
This doesn't explain why you can't discuss the murder with me.
Well, the Merchants Guild is supposed to be the shining beacon that shows the rest of the world how unsurpassably wonderful Ankh-Morpork is.
By robbing them blind?
Oi, watch it.
Sorry. Continue.
Anyway, the point is, it's bad publicity if we're seen to have a murder in our ranks.
Couldn't you sell it as a tourist attraction?
What?
You know, come to Ankh-Morpork, site of the infamous counterweight killings.
Show some respect. A merchant lies dead, struck down in his prime.
So do half a dozen other people.
True, but they weren't merchants.
Broloque civique.
So how exactly do you go about advertising the civic charms of Ankh-Morpork?
We pursue those misguided people who publicly fail to recognize the many attractive points of this fine city.
Pursue?
Yes, we hire large gangs of men with ears like fists and fists like walnuts to point out that Ankh-Morpork is in fact a marvellously clean and decent city in which to live. A process whose ongoing nature might be swiftly curtailed if they don't shut up right now.
I suspect they see sense.
Oh yes, even if their eyes are a bit swollen.
Certes. Alors, du coup, il nous dira rien pour l'instant sur le meurtre du
About
marchand.
this merchant that was killed.
Sorry, I am not allowed to discuss the incident with outsiders. A guild policy.
It wouldn't hurt to tell me the broad details, would it?
It would hurt a lot. They'd throw me off the roof.
No one's going to know.
I'd know about hitting the ground.
Is it really that important to you?
The Merchants Guild takes its policies very seriously.
So it seemed. I had to find a way to exploit that.
Alors, si je me rappelle bien, il a dit un peu plus tôt qu'il avait été promu il n'y a pas longtemps. Donc, c'est peut-être un cas de chaussures pointues d'un homme mort.
I hear up at the Unseen University, they talk about dead men's pointy boots.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Really?
Yes, they ask no questions about how a wizard's shoes were emptied.
Operate the same policy here, do you?
What? Hey, what are you implying?
Well, you know. Here you are, stuck on the door. Then a merchant gets killed, leaving a vacancy in the hierarchy.
I did not kill Gaming.
But there aren't any witnesses to that.
On a son
are
nom.
there?
There aren't any witnesses at all. He was alone in the guild house when... Oops.
Thanks for the information.
Wait. Don't tell anyone I said anything. They'll lynch me.
I'll keep quiet if you tell me everything you know.
No, I've already said too much.
Well, it was good while it lasted. Now all I had to find out was how Gaiman had been killed. And I had a feeling I wasn't going to learn that here.
Donc là, on peut effectivement plus rien faire ici.
For now.
Mais on connaît quelqu'un qui sait nécessairement comment Gamin a été tué.
Who would say...
C'est la mort.
Can I see?
I am not in...
Still
In a
Et avec ça, du coup, on va pouvoir faire chanter la mort. En quelque sorte, ou du moins, la faire gaffer.
According to the gatekeeper at the Merchants Guild, nobody witnessed Gaiman's stabbing.
Gaiman wasn't stabbed.
Really? How did he die?
He was strangled.
Ah! Thank you.
Blast. I didn't see that one coming.
Ah, blast. Et avec ça, nous avons deux informations. Donc, Gamin étranglé dans la guilde.
Thanks for filling in the missing pieces about Gaiman's murder.
I'd deem it a favor if you forgot that I told you.
Merci. Au revoir.
Well, goodbye. I'm sure we'll meet again.
Oh, you can be certain of it.
Et de deux. En profiter pour aller le dire à Chicard. Je crois que ça apporte rien, mais faisons
I
l'histoire.
found out about the dead merchant. His name was Gaiman, and he was strangled.
How did you find that out?
I was told by the Tooth Fairy.
Really? clever of you to track her down.
Anybody ever told you you're credulous, snobby?
All right, I know. But I've got some special ointment for it.
De toute façon, j'aime tellement les dialogues que si je peux en écouter un maximum.
The main doors, frankly, there was something about the watch house that made me nervous.
Intéressant. Je savais pas qu'on pouvait cliquer sur les portes du guet. Alors, dernier meurtre, le patricien. On va en discuter avec les gardes, car après tout, peut-être qu'ils en savent quelque chose.
I hear one of the clerks got murdered.
Ask questions like that and we might have to arrest you.
On what grounds?
Well, on the palace grounds, obviously.
Bon, les gardes vont pas pouvoir nous en dire quoi que ce soit. Est-ce que je peux me changer en loup ici? Ouais. Oh
One
oh,
of the empty barrels had a faint magenta trace to it.
intéressant. Est-ce que c'est l'odeur de mon assassin?
Definitely the same scent as my killer, which meant whoever it was made it into the palace concealed in a wine barrel. Why did that bring to mind the phrase, "You wait, time passes," and Thorin sits down and starts singing about gold?
Ça, je pense que c'est une référence à Bilbon le Hobbit. Alors, marron non. On a confirmation que les odeurs de vin sont les mêmes.
The red wine here smelled identical to the wine from the Café Ankh wine cellar. I guess they must be the supplier for the palace.
Donc, on a conviction que... attendez.
The
Vert
garbage was
Poulouse.
giving off a
Oh, oh.
distinctive green cloud, not dissimilar to the smell of the river Ankh.
Intéressant. Odeur vert pelouse.
Ah, the smell of garbage. An inferior version of the smell of the Ankh, in my opinion.
D'accord, l'odeur des ordures. C'est pas tout à fait ce que on cherche. Mais je crois que là, c'est toutes les odeurs qu'il y aura. Allons voir notre copain Léonard de Quirn. Est-ce qu'il a quelque chose à nous dire?
It always looked much easier in the clickies.
Ils ont avancé dans leur machine, hein?
Two Conkers was Ilsa's companion, an Agatean with a sharp mind but a slender grasp on the local tongue. He was also Ilsa's husband. I still didn't know how I felt about that.
Est-ce que Léonard de Quirn sait quelque
Can
chose
I ask
sur
you
le
a few
meurtre
questions?
Well, we
Du
are a
Claire.
little busy at the moment. Can it wait?
How long?
Just a day or so.
No, then it can't wait.
Very well. What did you want to know?
Il est très poli, Léonard. Hein?
What is that thing you're working on?
Je crois que ça va être le même dialogue.
Flapping. I
Ouais.
had put it to.
What was...
It occurred to me.
Ouais,
Well, if...
c'est le même dialogue qu'hier. Ah, quels sont les
What
problèmes
are
de la
the
machine?
problems you're experiencing?
C'est nouveau, ça.
Mainly weight. If it is going to fly, it has to be light. But Two Conkers had suggested using bombastic wood for the frame, which is extremely light for its strength. I have to rate one of my floating designs to get enough of the stuff, but it should work.
If weight is a problem, why does it seat two people?
The patrician said he would be most interested in the device if it could be used to fly two people.
You don't know why?
Well, he said he was interested in how far you could travel in it.
Come to think of it, I suppose Veterinary might be interested in getting a long way from the city in a hurry one day. Could you fly a long distance in it?
I imagine you'd get very tired. Still, if it were moving over a flat surface, you might get some additional lifting things up force reflected off the ground, which would mean it would be easier. I call this the reflecting some of your lifting things up force off the ground effect.
Il est pas très
Well,
bon
this is
pour
all
les
very
noms.
interesting, but it isn't helping my case much.
Alors, certes. Est-ce qu'il sait quelque chose sur le meurtre du
I
clerc?
knew full well that asking either
Voilà.
Leonard or Two Conkers about any of the murders would be a waste of time.
Donc effectivement, là c'était une
I
pensée,
decided to leave. I doubted they even noticed I was gone.
mais Alors, table en pagaie. Ok, ok. Qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire d'autre?
Who would say?
Can I still hear?
In a sense.
Il y a quelque chose avec la mousse à faire, je
I
sais.
don't suppose you know anything about mosses.
Moss? Did you say moss plants? Yes, lots of plants here. Can't remember much about them these days. The memory fails. There are books.
Voilà. Et ça nous ouvre la bibliothèque, je crois.
Ah,
Voilà.
yes. The library's apocrypha. All the books are there.
Ça faisait partie des endroits où j'étais bloqué à
May I
l'époque
use the
également.
library?
Eh? What was that, my boy? The library.
Parce que montrer de la mousse au compte,
Ah,
c'était
yes.
pas logique.
The
C'était pas
library's
évident.
Apocrypha. All the books are there. You know, you can use it if it will help your inquiries. How go your inquiries? Have you heard from Reagan?
No, not yet.
This room contains the von Uberwald's Libraris Apocrypha. So will, I trust, be careful not to damage any of the priceless tomes housed within.
I'll be careful.
One would be very upset if one was to return to find, sir, perhaps folding paper animals from a priceless folio edition of the Dictionary of Eye-Watering Words.
What are they?
They are books, sir.
I realize that. What are they about?
The Libraris Apocrypha is a collection of obscurities and rare volumes from across the continent. If knowledge were an animal, the Libraris would be a great dragon. Sir, by the same scale, would be a kebab on an ant's barbecue.
Careful.
Bien, très bien. Donc on n'a pas accès à la bibliothèque de l'université, mais on a accès à cette bibliothèque-là. N'est-ce pas? Alors, la bibliothèque apocrypha.
The library was the von Uberwald's collection of obscurities. Perhaps I could turn it to my advantage. I grabbed a book from the shelves. Jane's All the World's Siege Weapons. Fascinating stuff. If I was planning to storm a castle and I had the defense budget of a small barony.
Est-ce que il donne un livre nouveau à chaque
My
fois?
hand fell upon
Voilà.
the Dictionary of Eye-Watering Words. It lived up to its name.
Ah,
I skimmed through the section of the library that looked the most used. I found a copy of The Joy of Tantric Sex with illustrations for the advanced. It raised an interesting question as to which of the von Uberwald household had thumbed the pages so thoroughly.
Et pourquoi ces pages Coltel?
I found a copy of My Life Among the Sponge-Eating Coral House-Dwelling Pygmies by General Sir Roderick Purdy. It was no help at all. I found a copy of Stripfettel's Believe It or Not Grimoire. I learned that the average dung beetle ate more than its own weight in dung each day. But nothing that was going to help me.
Ah, c'est bête, c'était
I
intéressant.
could probably pick random books indefinitely if I wanted, but I figured it might be more useful if I looked up something specific.
Ouais. Donc là, nous avons les fiches de la bibliothèque qui permettent du coup de chercher des choses sur un sujet en particulier. Oh, l'animation qui bug un peu là. Newton qui danse là la Java en parcourant les fiches.
The books were all neatly indexed by a vast series of cards in a wooden case. It looked like the von Uberwalds were using an ancient version of Huey's octal system of indexing. It was complicated, but I reckoned I could at least use it to find out what books they had on a particular subject, and then wander around until I saw a bookshelf with the right number on it.
Bien. Donc, avec ça...
I could mess up the filing system, I suppose, if I wanted the butler to eviscerate me with sarcasm the next time I saw him. A far better plan would be to use the index to look up a book on a particular subject.
Donc l'idée, c'est de faire des va-et-vient avec notre inventaire ou ce que l'on a pour avoir des informations. Donc par exemple, si je prends la pièce de monnaie, renseignons-nous sur cette pièce dans la bibliothèque.
Whatever the coin was, I couldn't find anything about it here.
Ah. Donc cette séquence me fait beaucoup penser à la bibliothèque de Monkey Island 2, où c'est un peu la même idée. C'est un grand classique des jeux d'aventure, ça. Aller dans une bibliothèque pour trouver des informations. Je trouve ça
I found a copy of Orange
très
Crates
cool
on the
comme
nature
concept.
of plants. The book was a tediously detailed study of the plant kingdom, and one of the most boring things I've ever read. But I found the moss in there. Apparently it was a lycanthrope, a type of animate moss with crude locomotion, found only in the worst sewers in the most decrepit urban areas. Apparently the lycanthrope looked like harmless moss until something to eat walked
Le
by.
lycanthrope,
Then they
c'était un très bon jeu de
transformed
mots.
into a deadly lichen and devoured their prey, at least as long as it was small enough. Otherwise they just clung on for dear life.
Donc avec ça, on sait d'où vient la mousse, et du coup ça nous a débloqué un indice qu'on va voir juste après. Je crois pas qu'on ait autre chose à voir là, non. Et du coup, les égouts, et là l'idée je crois c'est qu'il faut refaire les égouts sur les fiches pour avoir un plan des égouts de la ville, ce qui va nous permettre du coup d'explorer les égouts et en savoir un peu plus sur la provenance de la mousse.
And found some ancient plans of the city of Ankh. There was an intricate sewer system beneath the city. It must be thousands of years old. It would be in quite a state if it was still around, and as far as I could tell, it would be under the waterline if there wasn't a drought on. Given the rains that we'd had recently, I could only find one section of sewer that might be above water. There was a shallow sewer running from the Magdalen Bridge around the rimward side of the Royal Winter Palace of the Kings of Ankh, now the home of the patrician. I guess the designers weren't allowed to put sewers under the palace grounds, which might have been why the Royal Summer Palace of the Kings of Ankh was a long way from Ankh-Morpork. That and the stench of the river Ankh, anyway.
Donc avec ça, on va pouvoir progresser dans l'aventure. Profitons-en pour chercher d'autres choses. Mundi pendu par les pieds. Est-ce qu'on va trouver quelque chose sur... Ah, dommage. S'il y avait un crime rituel qu'on aurait pu choper. Ferma, il n'y avait rien. Von Bavald. Est-ce qu'on a quelque chose sur les loups-garous? Non. On n'a rien sur les loups-garous. Le meurtre de Regine non plus. Je pense pas qu'on puisse trouver quelque chose. Quoique, non. Évidemment. Ah. Hop. Newton qui rejoue du fessier. J'ai miscliqué. J'ai mécliqué. Voilà. Alors, donc Regine, non. Sapphire, j'ai plus rien. Est-ce qu'il y a quelque chose sur une épée en or dans la bibliothèque? Il doit y en avoir beaucoup d'épées en or, mais peut-être que ça va nous donner un indice sur la suite.
Finding a book on swords wasn't as difficult as I thought. I even found a tome on gold blades. 1001 gold swords, the complete story of gold swords throughout history. Unfortunately, it wasn't very helpful.
Ah, quel dommage. Comme disait De Baron, il y a trop d'armes en or dans la vie. Ok, donc l'épée, on ne peut rien faire. Contact est suspect, je pense pas qu'on puisse faire grand chose. Y a-t-il un arbre généalogique ou quelque chose comme ça sur les von Eberwald? Et y a-t-il quelque chose sur Carlotta?
I was looking for a book that would tell me something about Carlotta when I stumbled upon The Complete Bloody History of Uberwald. In it was the story of Duchess Charlotte von Uberwald, who was betrothed to Vlach the Impala, most feared of the undead antelope. She betrayed him and married into the von Uberwalds instead, causing a minor peasant uprising. The whole history of Uberwald seemed to be a series of peasant uprisings.
Donc ce que disait Carlotta avait un quelques fondements historiques. Alcali, on va tomber sur la ville d'Alcali, mais sans doute pas sur le nain Alcali, mais sait-on jamais.
There was nothing about Alcali himself, but there was a copy of frescoes and fatal traps of the temples of Alcali, which was less than enlightening. I wondered if I was ever going to find out the origin of his name. But then I read the line. The city of Alcali is also known for its wind, blowing from the vastness of the deserts and continents nearer the rim. A gentle yet persistent breeze. It carries aromatic messages from the heart of the continent, compounded of the chill of the deserts, the stink of lions, the compost of jungles, and the flatulence of wildebeest. Well, it is a working theory at least.
Certes, certes. Ilsaï de Marron, je pense pas qu'il soit dans la bibliothèque.
I didn't really
Ouais, ça c'était un peu farfetched. Au niveau des meurtres, est-ce que les meurtres contre poids m'apportent quelque chose?
I didn't really know how...
Non. Mundi, on l'a déjà fait. Regine aussi. Le meurtre de Malakith, je pense pas que ça fasse quoi que ce soit.
I didn't...
Ouais. Ah mince, à nouveau. Ah, on peut pas couper l'animation. Ah, désolé. Hey Newton, yeah. Shake it, baby, shake it.
The books were all neat.
Ok. Meurtre de Malakith. Est-ce qu'il y a quelque chose sur Jasper Horst?
I didn't really...
Non. Ça aurait été surprenant. Meurtre du clerc, Brimborion. Je pense pas qu'il y ait quelque chose sur les meurtres. Non. Rien du tout sur les meurtres. Michel Agneus. Est-ce qu'il y a quelque chose sur le bijou plaqué or dont avait parlé De Marron? Ouais, on va peut-être avoir une information là-dessus.
None of the books on jewels or antiquities I could find said anything about a gold-plated jewel. I couldn't write off the possibility that there was something in the library that I hadn't managed to find, though. If I knew what it was called, it'd be easier.
Certes. Donc peut-être effectivement qu'une fois que l'on aura le nom du bijou, on en saura plus. Les chaussures pointues d'un homme mort, je pense pas. Ah si, chaussures pointues d'un homme mort nous donne quelque chose, tiens, bizarrement.
I looked up unseen university policy in the library and found the university prospectus. Not only were the iconographs in it at least 30 years out of date, but the prospectus made Ankh-Morpork sound like the cultural center of the disc, and not the rancorous cesspool that it was. It did mention, however, that progression through the 8 levels of wizardry is determined in part by the acquisition of degree qualifications, and particularly towards the top of the tree, where the number of places became few and far between, by a policy of dead man's pointy boots. No questions being asked about the manner of them emptying. This information, although thorough, seemed of absolutely no use to me.
Ah, quel dommage. Mais encore une fois, c'est... Je pense que... Il faudrait que je vois s'il y a des speedruns du jeu, je pense qu'il doit y en avoir, il y a sans doute des bugs aussi que je connais pas. Mais... Je trouve malgré tout qu'il y a beaucoup de dialogues, comme toujours dans les Discord, que j'ai toujours pris grand plaisir à lire. Bref, avec ça, nous avons enfin accès aux égouts d'Ankh-Morpork. Et cette...
The ancient civic plans from the library led me straight to the sewer's entrance, not far from the Mortland Bridge. A relatively small tunnel was concealed beneath a pile of debris that must have accumulated over the centuries. It looked as if most of the tunnels here were actually still above the water line, or the sludge line, to be more honest about it.
Les écrans qui suivent m'ont toujours fait penser à Grim Fandango, qui est sorti un peu avant. Je trouvais qu'il y avait quelque chose dans le dessin, dans le style, qui était vraiment cool. J'aimais
I
beaucoup.
wasn't even sure it really was water. I didn't want to root around in the water.
Et ça me faisait penser à Grim Fandango dans le dernier chapitre de l'aventure, quand on doit rencontrer le fleuriste dans les égouts près du casino d'Actor. Et voilà, je trouvais qu'il y avait un peu cette même ambiance que j'aimais beaucoup. Transformons-nous en loup. C'est
The
dur.
smell of the unk was unbearably strong in the sewer, and it was all I could do to remain conscious.
Et aucune trace en tout cas d'une autre odeur en particulier. Allons par là. Qu'est-ce qui se passe ici? Au des égouts. Et là on voit c'est un labyrinthe. Hein. On peut aller de à différents endroits. Mais évidemment l'idée c'est de réussir. Oh oh!
The trail that I had seen in the cemetery seemed to continue down in the sewers, starting at one of the pipes and disappearing into the passageways. It was
Intéressant.
almost drowned out by the smell of the unk, though. The trail, it was all...
Ah, ah. Il s'agit bien de la même odeur hein, que celle de mon assassin. L'odeur magenta. Hop.
Definitely the same scent. The smell... All... The trail... It...
Et en tout cas, on voit très bien du coup que on va dans les gouttières. Et donc du coup, en regardant l'odeur, on a débloqué une zone à observer.
The pipe seemed like any other in the sewer, but for some reason my killer's trail seemed to pass through it.
Et vous avez dû voir que c'est quelque chose dans le jeu qu'ils font très souvent. Il faut observer, arriver à une conclusion logique pour débloquer un lieu, un endroit de l'écran pour cliquer dessus. Et je trouve que ça marche très bien avec un jeu d'enquête de détective.
Looking up the length of the pipe, I could see a grill in the roof of the sewers, and I could make out the temple of small gods at the top.
Ah ah, intéressant. Évidemment, si on va là, du coup,
Looking up the length of the...
on tourne en fait dans les égouts, on trouve pas d'autres issues, évidemment. Alors, est-ce que je peux néanmoins suivre,
The trail
voilà,
that I had seen in the
l'odeur.
cemetery seemed to continue down in the sewers, starting at one of the pipes and disappearing into the passageways. It was almost drowned out by the smell of the unk, though.
Alors, néanmoins, on voit que l'assassin, ça fait 2 fois que l'odeur de l'assassin nous conduit au temple des petits dieux. Hein, donc il y a sans doute quelque chose à explorer par là. Hein. Tanière.
The lair was concealed in one of the sewer's many niches.
Que se passe-t-il dans cette tanière? Ah, ah, il y a des débris.
There was all manner of debris piled up inside the niche. It looked like some kind of nest. I was strongly reminded of what I'd found in the Milka's cargo hold, only this nest seemed bigger somehow.
Est-ce qu'on peut fouiller dans les débris? Je suis pas
Amongst the
sûr.
garbage was some kind of
Ah ah! Un pendentif.
The metal of the pendant glinted amongst the debris.
Tarara, tarararam.
As I stood in the alcove examining the pendant, I felt as if I wasn't alone. It was the same presence I'd felt in the Milka's hold. I could feel the cold touch of death upon me. It was a strangely light touch.
Et il s'agit d'un des personnages les plus truculents du disque monde, la mort au rat.
It obviously isn't important, I agree.
Quick, 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 quick,
You
quick,
are death, right?
quick, quick.
Rats have their own death? No offense, I mean, you're very, very intimidating. For a skeletal rat, at least.
Est-ce que c'est toi qui étais dans le Milka?
If you don't mind me asking, were you on the Milka before? I thought so. What were you doing on the Milka? Uh-huh. No, please, go on. Did you see anything? Well, I don't know anything unusual.
Le personnage apparaît aussi dans le deuxième Discworld, si je me rappelle bien.
Yeah, I saw that. And that's here. This is its lair. It can't be very big. That's not very comforting. But I guess that's not your job. But comfort, I mean.
Quick.
I wasn't suggesting you weren't good at your job. I've never looked at it that way before. I couldn't believe it. I was talking to a phantasmal rodent. I hoped he couldn't read my thoughts. He seems easily offended.
Sincèrement, Newton, depuis le début de cette histoire, c'est pas le truc le plus extravagant qui t'est arrivé. Parlons de la mort des rats.
What's it like being the death of rats?
Quick. C'est typiquement mon genre d'humour, ça. Quick.
You don't get to talk much, do you?
Et t'es lié à la
So
mort.
what's your connection to the big guy? You're sort of like relatives then. You probably get together for birthdays and hogwatch night. I'd like to see that.
J'aimerais bien, moi aussi. Le sifflet sinistre.
So,
Parlons à bâton rond.
do you come here often?
Quick.
I'm sorry, it's not easy to think of things to say to something like you. Well, it's not often I find myself in the sewers talking to a... What are you exactly? Exactly. Well, it was nice meeting you. I have to get going.
La mort au rat ne nous apporte pas
It's not
grand-chose.
like that. I have a lot of work to do. You too, huh?
C'est tellement ridicule. J'adore ce personnage. La mort des rats, je trouve que c'est extraordinaire. Changeons-nous en loup pour voir un peu ce qui se passe.
The magenta scent permeated the niche, stronger even than the smell of the ankh. There weren't many times in life you got to say that.
On confirme que c'est bien l'odeur de notre
It was
assassin.
definitely the scent from the cemetery. I still didn't know what the coruscating static meant, though. The magenta... There weren't...
Ah, on peut pas aller plus loin, je pense. Ah, le sifflet sinistre apparaît ici, tiens.
That's what I thought.
D'accord, intéressant.
You too.
Ok. Bon. Avec ça, je pense qu'on a déjà pas mal de choses.
I'd found the pendant in the sewers. How it got there was anyone's guess.
Un archéologue comme De Marron pourrait nous permettre de voir un peu mieux ce qui se trame. Avec ce pendentif. On va aller lui rendre visite. Alors, il n'y a pas de raccourci pour aller directement voir De Marron. Je crois pas. Je crois pas que même en double-cliquant, je crois qu'il faut toujours utiliser le grappin pour monter. Non, c'est bon. Hop, montrons le pendentif à De Marron.
Do either of you recognize this? Is of much familiarness. From where? Near sort being somewhere near. Ah, yesness. Seal on temple in Alkali.
Ah
It's the
ah!
seal on the doors of a temple?
May I
Encore
see?
Alkali.
Why not?
Ah, yes, I recognize that. That's from the temple with the intricate door locking mechanism, isn't it? Quite a marvel of technology for the era it was built, those doors. I was very impressed with them. Now, what was the name of the god? it
Et
was
là,
that
c'est le
they-
jeu de mots
I can't
pour lequel
quite
ils ont mis l'accent italien en français.
I know.
I am sure you do, but give me a moment and it'll come to me.
I think he meant it's from the temple of Anu Anu.
I know, pour Anu Anu, et en italien, avec l'accent italien, Anu Anu, pour faire ce jeu de mots en français.
This is a replica of the same, of much sureness, replica of most exactitude. That might be helpful to know. Thanks.
Et avec ça, effectivement, on a du coup un nouvel indice, le temple d'Anu Anu à Alcali. C'était Gob la Lune, au temple des demi-dieux, qui nous parlait du temple d'Anu Anu. Enfin, de Anu Anu. On va aller à la bibliothèque.
I will show Sir the way, since it seems the labyrinthine corridors of this vast edifice are beyond Sir's meager navigational skills.
Alors, interrogeons-nous sur le temple d'Anu Anu à Alcali.
There was a book in the library called Frescoes and Fatal Traps of the Temple of Al-Kali. But when I turned to the page on the door mechanism, it had been torn out by someone. I was going to have to find another copy of the book. There were only 2 other libraries in Ankh-Morpork that I knew about, and one of those was in the Assassin's Guild.
Et l'autre, évidemment, c'est la bibliothèque de l'Université Invisible. Alors c'est marrant quand même que le jeu nous amène vers le guide des assassins que l'on ne visite pas dans ce jeu. Qu'on visite pas dans les autres jeux d'ailleurs. Je sais pas s'il voulait pas donner un indice trop direct.
But I couldn't find the pendant in any of them. I did get the idea that the design of the pendant might match something else though.
Ah, intéressant. Donc du coup, je crois que c'est là où il va falloir qu'on retourne à l'Université Invisible pour demander aux étudiants de se renseigner sur le temple d'Anu Anu à notre place.
I altered one of the subjects on the board, switching the Great Nev for Al-Kali. Now all I had to do was see if anyone took the bait.
Ça aussi, à l'époque, je l'avais pas trouvé immédiatement. Je me rappelle avoir consulté une solution. Et du coup, comme beaucoup de choses pour lesquelles j'ai consulté des solutions, c'est resté gravé dans ma mémoire. Je suis assez fier de moi. Je me rappelle quand même de pas mal de choses pour un jeu que j'ai pas fait depuis 8 ans, peut-être. Je me rappelle quand même de pas mal de petites choses. Et donc, avec ça, on a le livre sur les temples qui est apparu ici.
A copy of Frescoes and Fatal Traps of the Temples of Al-Kali miraculously appeared after I changed the octarine board. I guess the students took their studies more seriously than I thought, but fortunately they still didn't have much idea what it was they were studying most of the time. I had a feeling I wasn't going to get away with stealing the book.
Bon, bah alors, prenons l'indice et hop.
The pendant's design matched the one in the book for the seal of the temple of Anu Anu at Al-Kali. The temple was famed for its intricate door mechanism, and the book described how to manipulate the seal to open the temple doors. I used the same method on the pendant, and it opened with a faint click. Inside was a small piece of paper with names on it. One name leapt out at me. Therma. I decided to keep the list to myself.
Une liste de noms. The plot thickens. Est-ce qu'on peut voir les noms qu'il y a sur la
I
liste?
found a list of 8 names in the pendant. The name that stood out was Therma's.
Ok, il n'y a pas d'autres noms sur la liste qui nous intéressent? Intéressant. Parce que oui, c'est intéressant, soit, mais... Est-ce que Chicard est intéressé par notre liste de noms?
I'd keep the list of names.
Ok. Est-ce que je peux utiliser la liste de noms pour la bibliothèque? Je doute que ça donne quelque chose, mais...
I didn't really...
Nah. Ça va pas faire grand chose. Est-ce que si je donne la liste de noms à Humanite, parce qu'après tout c'est lui qui m'avait parlé de Ferma.
My usual, please. Luton. Your...
Ah.
Is my tie not done up straight? Is there an unfortunate mark on my nose? I heard you were dead. Perhaps I am. Get me a stiff drink. How about a whiskey? Don't you want something with it? All right, put another whiskey in there. Drinking like that'll kill you. I'm dead already. You didn't come back here to drink, did you? I'd keep the list of names.
Ok. Est-ce que du coup, Est-ce qu'Humanite nous dit quelque chose?
Is this a good time? Given that there's never a good time for a friendly chat, I guess it's as good as any. How's business been? So this you
toujours le même dialogue. Je suis pas sûr. C'est marrant d'ailleurs qu'il laisse le perroquet Octarine alors qu'on a techniquement plus besoin de le faire. Est-ce que d'aller au temple des petits dieux nous débloque quelque chose maintenant? Si je montre la liste à Malaclips.
I read out the list of names to Malaclips, and that familiar look came over his face.
Ah, yes. Anu worshippers are these. The first ones. They're up to something secret, too. Out of Malaclips's ears, soft in the darkness, they scheme.
I'm investigating them. Want to know what I find out?
As long as it doesn't cost me anything. Make rash bargains, Luton.
Ok, très bien.
I need your help. Which day?
Là, c'est le même dialogue que précédemment. Demande pour Erata. Mais du coup, si je te remontre ça... D'accord, complot. Ça, c'est le même dialogue. Erata, ok. L'église Erata. C'est les mêmes dialogues que ceux qu'on a eu la première fois. D'accord, il y a définitivement quelque chose avec Malaclips. Alors, si c'est des membres d'Anu, Goblalune est sans doute là-dedans. Je sais qu'il est là-dedans, évidemment, mais comment est-ce qu'on fait pour le convaincre? La verrière... Est-ce que je peux lui montrer la liste de noms?
I wasn't about to reveal that I had the list to Mooncalf. I had a feeling that would be suicide. But perhaps I could use it to trap him. Someone told me that you know Therma.
Indeed. And who might that have been?
It's not important. Is she part of your cult?
No. No, she's not.
But you know her.
No. I've never met her.
I see. What about Satrap?
Are you intending to bore me with a list of people's names? I haven't time for this tomfoolery. I must preach the gospel of Anu.
Thy kingdom Coom and all that.
Yes. Indeed.
I'd clearly unsettled him mentioning Coom. Now I just needed to sit back and watch what he got up to.
Ok.
Well,
I'll be here. Did I tell you that?
D'accord. Est-ce que du coup c'est le moment d'aller voir dans la verrière s'il parle pas avec quelqu'un? Oui, voilà. Je me rappelais de cette scène. En allant à la verrière, du coup, on voit qu'il discute avec quelqu'un. Et là, si je me transforme en loup, je peux les entendre.
With my sharpened wolf senses, I could hear what Mooncalf was saying to the troll.
And I think we may have to do something about it. We will have a meeting of the true believers after this evening's sermon.
Sure thing, boss. You want I should go now?
No. You keep an eye on Luton if you can. I'll go back to the sanctuary and leave a message for the others.
You got it, boss.
Ta-da-dam, ta-da-dam. On progresse, on progresse. Donc du coup, maintenant que l'on a des informations sur l'Assemblée des croyants véritables, on a besoin de Malaclypse pour s'infiltrer dans la réunion.
I overheard Mooncalf talking about a meeting of the true believers. I'd really like to know what that was about.
It's tough to find out what the cult of Anu is up to.
Is there any way I could listen in to one of Mooncalf's sermons?
The sermons don't take place here. They hold them in the inner sanctum.
The inner sanctum?
It's the center of worship here in the Temple of Small Gods.
How come? I mean, there are a vast number of gods and goddesses that the temple has to provide for. Are you telling me they all have to share one room for the services?
Absolutely. High priests are always complaining that so-and-so was hogging the sanctum all morning, or that such and such left hair at the bottom of the holy font. It causes a lot of tension around the temple.
Ah, je peux imaginer.
I'd like to have a look around.
I could arrange to have the sanctum for a while if I told them I had a follower, but I don't.
Ben, je peux peut-être être un de tes followers. Non.
Which day?
Ok. Est-ce que du coup,
Tell me about.
je peux lui demander d'être un disciple d'Errata,
Errata.
l'église
So
d'Errata.
is there a form? And what?
The sky.
Complot. Est-ce que du coup je peux faire un don à l'église?
I suppressed the urge to ask for money. I was broke.
Non.
I read out the list of names.
They're up out of Malaclypse.
I'm investigating them. Want to know what I find out?
As long as it doesn't cost me anything. I don't make.
Est-ce que c'est suffisant? Non. On doit pas être loin.
I overheard Mooncalf talking.
Voilà, le Saint des Saints. Oui, bah propose-toi, Newton, d'être un believer. Il me manque quelque chose. Il me manque quelque chose pour être un believer.
I suppressed. I was broke.
Qu'est-ce que j'ai loupé? On dit pendu par les pieds. Ferma, Bonneberval non plus. Saphir, il n'y a plus rien. L'épée, il n'y a plus rien. Alcali?
The dwarf?
Ah.
Yes, he's an associate of Horst's. A minor player in the greater scheme of things, but dangerous nonetheless.
D'accord. Meurtre du vin, bijoux
Do you know
plaqués.
anything about obscure jewels?
I know that the tear of Offla has been stolen again.
Again?
They spend 1 month of the year admiring it in the lost jeweled Temple of Doom, and 11 months of the year tracking it down after someone steals it.
And the other month?
In the 13th month, they have to fill out all their insurance forms.
Insewer ants?
An Agatean concept. People pay money against the odds of a particular disaster or theft occurring. It's complicated.
Ah oui, bah, je vois bien. Mais ça ne fait... Ça m'avance pas des masses.
The sermon.
Ouais, c'est dans le Saint des Saints. Mais je veux être ton disciple. Pourquoi je peux pas être ton disciple, Malaclypse?
I'll have to
try.
Qu'est-ce que j'ai manqué? Parce que là, du coup, bah oui, Gobla Lune n'est plus ici. Est-ce qu'il faut que j'aille et puis que je revienne?
They were keeping their distance, but I managed to briefly catch sight of the dwarf who was following me. I need...
They...
Je dois... Il y a quelque chose qui doit m'échapper, je pense.
I read...
Je... Il y a quelque chose qui m'échappe là. Il y a quelque chose qui m'échappe.
They looked like ordinary bandages, but at some point they'd been soaked in plaster. What they were doing in Rodin's workshop was anyone's guess.
Ah, les bandages de plâtre, oui. Je me rappelais pas effectivement de cette chose.
Plaster-encrusted bandages on the floor of Rodin's workshop. Apart from the fact that they'd been soaked in plaster and left to dry, there didn't seem to be anything unusual about them.
Je suis pas sûr qu'on puisse se transformer ici. Si, si.
There was a blue mist around the statue Rodin had been working on.
Ça doit être Rodan. Brume bleue.
The place where malachite had been perched smelled of a deep, earthy brown.
Donc ça, c'est malachite, mais on a déjà l'odeur.
I'd found a matching scent. The place where...
Ok. Et là, il n'y a rien de plus. Ah! Il me manque quelque chose pour... Parce que je sais qu'on s'infiltre dans le sein des saints. Mais... Pourtant, il me semble avoir tout. Est-ce que Gobe la Lune n'est plus là? Gobe la Lune est revenu. Peut-être que c'est ça. Peut-être du coup que maintenant que Gobe la Lune est là, je vais pouvoir m'infiltrer. Est-ce que c'est ça l'enjeu?
Is there any way I could listen in to one of Mooncalf's sermons?
The sermon?
Non. Est-ce que ça débloque? Non. Est-ce qu'avec la liste de noms...
I knew the first one. They're up.
I mean, one. Which?
You.
Demande pour Errata. Est-ce que je sais que je deviens son disciple? L'église d'Errata. Les complots. Non, il me manque quelque chose. Pour assister au serment, bizarrement. Si je reparle à Gobe la Lune, qu'est-ce qui se passe?
I have some more questions. I didn't want.
To these, I prefer to involve.
Il y a quelque chose qui m'échappe. Je vais consulter une solution rapidement parce que... Il y a quelque chose que je n'ai pas fait, mais j'arrive pas à voir quoi. Ah, peut-être qu'il faut d'abord que je finisse d'enquêter sur les meurtres. Ouais. Café Hank, Manda... Oh, ok. Alors. D'accord. Donc il faut reparler à Carlotta. Quelque chose que j'ai oublié de faire. Ça c'est pas... Il y a quelque chose ici qui est pas évident encore. Heureusement que j'ai consulté une solution parce que sinon j'aurais pas pensé à le faire.
I can never sleep after I've been stabbed to death.
What did you want to talk about?
Et en fait, si j'ai bien compris, il faut lui redemander si elle a tué Mundi.
The person who killed Mundy hung him upside down and poked his eyes out. Can you think of any reason they might have done that?
What? No. Why should I?
Well, you knew Mundy. I did. I thought...
Voilà. Et donc, il faut lui redemander si elle a tué
Did you
Mundi.
kill Mundy?
What?
C'est une
What do you
discussion
think I
qu'on a
am?
déjà eue, ça.
It's got nothing to do with what I think of you, Carlotta. But the Watcher investigate.
So why are you...
Let's just...
If I had...
That...
On what?
On...
You don't...
I have the trouble. It's... I try. In my...
That must be...
I do. You still have...
I didn't kill him.
Do you have... I told... I wasn't surprised. Frank, she was...
There are witnesses who can...
Ah, voilà.
I was in the...
Spend a lot...
Elle était au temple. D'accord, donc elle dit qu'elle était au temple. Ça, on l'a déjà fait. Il y a quelque chose qui m'échappe. Talk to Carlotta, but did Carlotta kill Mundi? Est-ce qu'il faut lui parler des autres meurtres?
Reagan's dead.
I'm not surprised.
You don't seem to care.
Everybody... Eve...
What?
No point.
Where?
When was...
Shortly after dropping you off at the Temple of Small Gods.
Well, there's your answer then.
Les meurtres
I
de
told Carlotta
Malachite.
when Malachite was murdered, and asked her where she was at the time.
I was at a service then. Why do you ask?
A service?
I happen to enjoy services.
I bet I would too. Why don't you invite me to one?
I wouldn't be allowed to bring an unbeliever.
How do you know I'm an unbeliever?
I doubt you believe in anything.
A man can change. Don't you have a recruitment policy?
I'd rather not talk about religion. It's such a controversial subject.
Voilà. Et en disant les 3 meurtres, voilà, j'avais oublié de l'interroger sur tous les meurtres, ça débloque alibi de Carlotta. C'est ça qui me manquait, effectivement.
Everyone needs a little solace now and then.
You seem to need it a lot.
I'm not easily satisfied.
Which god is it that you worship?
I really don't like to discuss religion.
Come on. I only want to know the name.
All right. Her name is Errata, but I don't appreciate you prying into my spiritual affairs like this.
Can I pry into your physical affairs?
My affairs are never just physical.
I bet you say that to all the boys.
Et ça nous fait l'indice Errata qui nous permet ensuite de convaincre Malaclips de devenir notre disciple et d'entrer dans le Saint des Saints. Et c'est maladroit parce que du coup, on connaît déjà Errata en parlant avec Malaclips et la discussion avec et le Saint des Saints et la réunion secrète et la liste de suspects aurait dû déjà débloquer cette option. Malheureusement, ce n'est pas le cas. Du coup, j'ai vu aussi du coin de l'œil quelque chose que j'avais oublié de faire pour enquêter sur le meurtre du clerc du patricien. J'avais totalement oublié qu'il fallait faire ça. On prend le pied de biche et on ouvre un tonneau de vin pour se faire amener au palais. Pour pouvoir s'infiltrer dans le palais.
I had a long wait, but it paid off.
C'était ça l'indice quand on avait reniflé les tonneaux de vin près du bureau du palais du patricien. J'avais totalement oublié ça. Ça c'était c'est un écran que j'avais totalement oublié qui me fait beaucoup penser à un écran de Discworld 2 de l'usine de Porc.
The wine barrels had allowed me to break into the palace. It didn't speak too highly of the palace's security, but I wasn't complaining. There really wasn't anything useful I could do with the barrels.
Des boîtes.
The storeroom was filled with boxes of food and supplies. I guess even the patrician had to eat every now and then. I couldn't think of anything useful to do with the boxes.
Je crois qu'il n'y a plus rien ici. Est-ce que tu peux te transformer? Ouais. Donc la brume rouge c'est le vin. Et puis, oh oh, trace de magenta.
Killer had definitely been here. The magenta scent was...
Utilisons notre souvenir des odeurs. Magenta.
It was the same scent as my killer's.
Ah ah. Explorons un peu le palais. L'une des rares fois, la seule fois où on va s'infiltrer dans le palais du patricien. On peut aller par là, il y a des portes.
I guess they didn't have an open door policy. Silence. Perhaps I should try a different door.
Donc ça veut dire, vous avez la bonne idée, trouvez la porte qui marche.
I guess they... There were people talking behind the door.
Oh, it's a terrible state. I don't know how he puts up with it. Oh, I know, dear, I know. Just because the prisoners don't mean they shouldn't keep their rooms clean. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. And those ones that are chained up, they're the worst. They think because they get special treatment, they don't have to tidy up. Nobody thinks of us cleaners, do they, dear? Perish the thought.
All in all, it wasn't the most useful conversation I could have overheard.
Certes. Là, il n'y a rien non plus. Allons dans ce couloir-là. Ah.
The only noticeable scent in the hallway was someone's trail which led to the double doors.
Ah ah. Bleu marine, on a cette odeur.
It smelled exactly the same. I guess they didn't have...
I do wish people would bear in mind how much paperwork everything is for us.
I know just what you mean. Have you seen file LEW-006/EXW? First, he steals a crow.
C'est moi,
And that's a
évidemment.
T-1712 form straight away.
Exactly.
No respect for the patrician spies and clerks. That's the trouble with this city.
Oh, the crowbar's only the start, believe me. I've got 2 counts of murder.
Ha! That's an FO86B just to get the list of forms you need.
Tell me about it. And as if that wasn't enough, he's only gone and died.
Oh, not another D2317E. I hate those.
Worse. A D66/004B.
Another murder? Oh, I haven't finished the paperwork from Cypher's death yet.
Still,
No.
I have to look on the bright side.
What's that then?
At least he hasn't come back from the grave.
Oh, I know what you mean. Those undead citizenship forms are the worst.
No consideration. That's the trouble. No consideration of us hard-working bureaucrats.
The clerks soon returned to their paperwork.
Ok, ça fait très Brésil cette conversation. Et puis il y a
The double doors were more
les
stately
doubles
than the
portes
others
ici.
leading from the hall. I reckon that it led to the oblong office, the patrician's personal sanctum. As a wolf, my hearing was dramatically improved. I could recognize one of the voices as Commander Vimes, and the other voice had the calculating tones of Lord Vetinari, the patrician of Ankh-Morpork.
Are you any closer to a solution for our mutual problem?
No, sir. I've been occupied.
Indeed. And what could occupy you?
There was a string of copycat killings. I've been trying to solve them.
And have you?
No. My lead suspect was killed.
That is very unfortunate.
It certainly was for Luton.
So there has been no progress in determining who killed Cypher.
Not as such.
I had been given to understand that this was precisely the situation you were well equipped to handle.
I will solve this case, sir. You can count on me.
Do you recall what I said the city reminds me of?
You said it reminds you of a clock, sir.
Indeed. Big wheels and little wheels, all turning at different speeds to keep the machine working. That, after all, is the most important thing. The machine keeps going.
You've told me this before.
Do you know why it keeps working?
Because you want it to keep working?
I'm flattered that you think I have such importance. But no, it keeps running because the people believe it will.
Ma philosophie politique doit aussi beaucoup à ce jeu.
There is a point to this, sir?
I always have a point. Sometimes it's sharper than others.
I'm sorry. Continue.
One of my clerks has been found face down in a vat of wine, and that makes it appear as if the administration has lost control.
And the administration is me, right?
We are all the administration. You do the work, and I take both the credit and the blame. Provided I do not take the blame, I am content. I trust I make myself clear.
Perfectly.
Suddenly, I could smell blood.
Ah, cette scène, oui, je l'avais oublié. Il va sentir du sang et il va plus pouvoir se contrôler.
Like a night in a forest. Except a night in a forest didn't make me want to tear someone's throat out. I didn't know whether the guard had cut himself or if I was just developing a healthy bloodlust, like any young werewolf. But I couldn't control myself. The next thing I knew, I was in my office. I had no idea how I got there, how I got my coat out of the palace, or where I'd got a traffic cone from. It had been that sort of night.
Ouais, j'ai eu des nuits comme ça quand j'étais
I
étudiant
was
aussi.
sitting at my desk, thinking over the case, when there was a knock at the door.
Avec les cônes de circulation compris.
It's a busy life when you're a private investigator. Plus, you get to see interesting foreign places and learn a trade.
There was a commotion at the palace last night. Perhaps you know about it?
What goes on at the palace has nothing to do with me.
Indeed it is not. And if, for some reason, you did take an interest in the palace, I'm sure you would not be so foolish as to be caught breaking into the palace.
Of course not. Think I'm suicidal?
Strange you should say that. I heard you'd been killed.
I expect you hear a lot of things that aren't true. I bet someone has to explain them to you using very small words.
The thing is, the intruder at the palace appears to have been a werewolf.
There's a lot of that around this time of year, I understand. Must be the moon.
I paid my respects to your grave.
Oh, that was nice of you.
It was empty.
Oh, you know how it is. I get claustrophobic in narrow spaces.
So, do werewolves, perhaps?
I wouldn't know about that.
Remember when I said how disappointed I was that I couldn't take you out for free?
Oh, that was a very touching sentiment.
Well, Lord Vetinari has generously offered to pay for the inhumation of last night's intruder.
He has a big heart.
It's a shame no one can find it.
Was there a point to your visit?
I was just passing through. Thought you might benefit from my advice.
How generous of you.
Well, I'll be on my way.
Yes.
The door's behind you. I can explain how to use it if you want.
Watch your steps, Luton. I will be.
C'est normal que Newton n'ait pas vraiment d'amis avec la façon dont il traite les gens, même les assassins. Je reviens. Alors, avec ça, du coup, on a effectivement...
I'd overheard the patrician and Vines talking about the murder of the clerk at the palace. Apparently the man's name was Cypher, and he'd been drowned in a vat of wine. There are worse ways to go, I guess.
Donc, on a maintenant des détails sur tous les meurtres contrepoids qui se sont déroulés en ville.
I found out about that Clark cipher. He was drowned in a vat of wine.
If you say so. Lucky for some, eh?
Certes. Donc effectivement, donc on a un gars qui a été empoisonné, l'un qui a été étranglé et l'autre noyé dans une cuve de vin. Ah. Bref. Maintenant que l'on connaît le nom d'Errata, parce qu'apparemment Newton était trop bouché à l'émery pour savoir quel était le nom de la déesse dont parlait en boucle Malaclypse, on va pouvoir se mettre à son
Carlotta
service.
says she's a follower of Errata. Is that right?
I am the only true follower of Errata in the whole of Ankh-Morpork. Unless you have seen the light, Luton.
Seen the light?
Do you believe in the ways of Errata?
How could I not? Surely, Errata is the most worthy of all gods to follow.
Either you've just had a miraculous conversion or you're learning to lie. Good. Are you still stealing followers of Errata?
Bon. Est-ce que maintenant je peux dire... Voilà, que je peux rentrer dans le sein des seins. Je trouve ça un peu... Oui, d'accord, soit je vois l'idée de... Mais... je trouve quand même que c'était un... C'est une partie de l'écriture qui est un peu maladroite, peut-être, je trouve. Il y avait 2-3 énigmes là pour l'instant, je vois. Mais c'est la raison pour laquelle les jeux d'aventure à l'époque, fin des années 90, début 2000, sont tombés en désuétude. C'est parce que les sauts logiques et l'absence d'aide in-game pouvaient nous bloquer pour des trucs comme ça pendant très longtemps, sans que l'on ait de soluce à l'époque. Aujourd'hui, avec Internet, c'est beaucoup plus simple, évidemment. Mais il y a du communautaire, il y a des choses comme ça, et même des jeux secrets, comme les jeux FromSoft et Dark Souls, etc., bénéficient du côté communautaire pour leur succès. Mais à l'époque, bon, c'était... bref. Est-ce que Malaclypse peut nous faire entrer dans le sein des saints?
So if I agree to be your follower, you can get us into the inner sanctum.
Yes, I can. But you wouldn't really be my follower. The followers of Errata don't follow each other. We don't even follow Errata. We follow our own ways.
So why is there a church of Errata at all?
You're learning, Luton. Keep thinking like that and you'll go far in the church.
So can you get me into the inner sanctum?
I can, provided we can find a time when the cult of Anu aren't there.
Are Mooncalf's lot in there often?
All the time. And that's not all either. He sneaks away after each one. I think they've got a secret sanctuary somewhere.
I'd like to find that.
Actually, I'd quite like you to find it too.
Can't resist a secret, eh?
No, I'd just like to get in the way of everything Mooncalf does. Him and his big evangelical budget and hordes of out-of-tune followers singing and chanting at all hours of the day. He's gonna get his comeuppance, and anything I can do to speed it up suits me fine.
So you'll help me?
Wait here. I'll go and make the arrangements.
Voilà. Et nous voilà enfin dans le sein des saints.
It took a while, but eventually Malaclypse got me into the inner sanctum. Malaclypse stayed by the door to warn me if anyone was coming.
Très bien, on progresse. Alors, qu'est-ce qu'on a ici? Je pense pas que Luton puisse se transformer en loup ici.
With a paranoid
Ouais.
Malaclypse at the door, this wasn't a good time to become a werewolf.
Donc, on va se rapprocher du pupitre, du lutrin.
There were small stained glass windows in the inner sanctum depicting the story of how a valiant mortal, pure and gentle, was cruelly tricked, taunted, and tortured by the gods. Just for a laugh. There wasn't much I could do to the windows.
Just for laugh.
The inner sanctum sported a beautiful lectern. The plaque said it was donated to the temple by Mr. Fedean, of the militant servitors of Ikebana, goddess of topiary. Searching, I discovered there was a cavity in the base of the lectern.
Eh bien, mettons-nous dans le lutrin. Parce qu'on va se planquer. J'ai toujours aimé cet écran aussi.
To my embarrassment, I got stuck.
They're coming! Hide!
I'm way ahead of you, Malaclips.
Et là, j'adore cette idée aussi, parce que, hop.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered together in the sight of our God, Anu Anu, to speak of our devotion to the Anointed One at this, our time of need. But before today's sermon, I'd like to read from the cult bulletin for a moment. Firstly, there's a jumble sale next Saturday to raise funds to buy a fresh goat to sacrifice. We'd appreciate it if as many cultists as possible could attend. We don't want to have to sacrifice another pigeon. It befits a deity of the illustrious wonder of Anu Anu to be sacrificed another of Mrs. Jeroboam's gerbils either. Yes, I know they breed like flies, but that's not the point.
The sermon was one of the most tedious things I'd ever had to listen to. And as if that wasn't bad enough, then the hymns started. Why the gods wanted to listen to such droning monotony was a mystery to me. But I suspected they just liked to make the mortals suffer.
Certes. Alors là, j'ai mis aussi beaucoup de temps avant de comprendre ce qu'il fallait faire avec les pieds de Gobelin Lune.
Something sharp into Mooncalf's feet was getting very hard to resist. I was going to have to be careful what I did to Mooncalf's feet.
Et en fait, ce qu'il faut faire, c'est mettre le parfum de saphir sur les pieds de Gobelin Lune pour qu'on puisse le suivre à la trace.
Sprayed Mooncalf's feet with Sapphire's trawl perfume. That should make the little psychopath a little easier to follow.
J'arrive plus à me rappeler exactement sur quel événement se termine l'acte. Donc j'arrive pas à voir si nous sommes encore loin de la fin.
Sapphire's perfume cut through the stench of the river like a trawl wading through a dwarf street rally. The bright reek led into the shades, the oldest and most dangerous part of the city.
Évidemment. Et on va entendre
what the so-called true believers were saying through one of the windows of the sanctuary.
Greetings, brethren. I call to order this extraordinary general meeting of the secret cabal of the true believers.
Ça fait très penser au premier épisode de Discworld. Ça.
What?
What is that? KC2?
What are you blathering about, Foyd? Anyway, I see we're all present.
Therma not present, boss.
Therma has to keep a low profile at the moment. Do not concern yourselves with her absence.
Why should Therma have such special status? I have important business of my own to be doing, and these interruptions aid no one.
Quiet, Satrap. Mooncalf wouldn't have called us together if it wasn't important.
Indeed not. There is an investigator, a Mr. Luton, who's been asking worrying questions. I think he may know about Nylon Ethertep.
I do now.
I still say this is madness. There must be a better way to glorify our beloved Anu Anu without taking such risks.
You always were the spineless one, Coombe.
Silence, Kondo. As chairman, I will not permit such disputes when the meeting of true believers has just been called to order.
When can we have a dispute?
It can wait until we reach any other business.
Et...
What is it?
I heard something outside.
They say bravery is what tells the men from the boys. Well, I was a wolf. So I figured I could be brave and still run away.
L'une des voix qu'on a entendues, c'était la voix de Vinch, le joueur du casino de l'acte précédent. Et avec ça, on a plein de nouveaux indices. Donc on a non seulement le repère sacré, Mais on a également le nouveau nom Nilonatatep que l'on va investiguer. Donc le sanctuaire dans les ombres, il est ici. Alors, c'est plus ou moins au même endroit que la carte du premier Discworld dans mes souvenirs. L'angle est un peu différent par rapport au premier Discworld. C'est-à-dire que on a un peu pivoté la carte sur le côté, mais la géographie générale de la ville a été assez bien respectée. On va d'abord aller se renseigner dans la bibliothèque sur Nilonatatep. Qu'est-ce qui se passe avec Nilonatatep?
The Necrotelecomnicon was a book that legend spoke of, saying that any mortal man who read it would be driven insane. I learnt about it from a copy of Necrotelecomnicon discussed for students with practical experiments that I found in the library. In this tome, there is a description of the old dark gods of the Disc, including the terrible laddering holler, Nilonatatep. Apparently, Nilonatatep was once summoned by a series of 8 murders, forming a perfect octagram, focused at the center of the Circle C, thus releasing it from the sunken city of Leshp, where he was trapped, along with drunken Cthulhu Bapalulu. The book speculated about the whereabouts of Nilonatatep now, but beyond him being safely imprisoned somewhere around the Circle C, it drew no conclusions.
Donc là, on rentre là plutôt dans le mythe Lovecraftien avec des références à Cthulhu, à des dieux anciens, etc. Et là, on s'excite un peu là avec les indices parce que l'on a l'octogramme des meurtres. Et là, on change des indices. On avait jusqu'à présent des mots. Maintenant, on a des...
But I could only find the entry I'd already seen in Necrotelecomnicon discussed for students.
Donc on avait jusqu'à présent que des mots, maintenant on a des dessins. Ce qui est une extension assez intéressante du concept. Donc le culte, donc Nilonatatep. Orthogramme de meurtre, je pense pas qu'on puisse... je pense que ça va renvoyer exactement vers la même chose, mais on n'est jamais trop prudent avec les jeux d'aventure. Non, c'est exactement la même chose. J'ai pas cherché Errata dans la bibliothèque. On va regarder ce qui se passe avec Errata.
The only literature I could find on errata in the library was a leaflet published by Malaclips, who gave his permanent address as the only really holy corner of the Temple of Small Gods.
Mais quand on n'a pas de représentant de publicitaire, faut faire sa promotion nous-mêmes. D'ailleurs, savez-vous que vous pouvez me suivre à toutes ces adresses judicieusement placées au-dessus de l'écran, hein, dans les petits cercles jaunes, sur Mastodon, sur mon blog de grammaire, pour mon podcast de jeux vidéo et sur YouTube. Je dis ça incidemment, bien évidemment. Hein. Et encore, j'ai pas mis mon autre blog culturel, bref. Retournons voir au sanctuaire. Qu'est-ce qui se passe là-dedans? Ah ah. Ça a l'air d'être un joli loft, hein, n'est-ce pas? Donc il y a une fresque.
The sanctuary was decorated with a strange and disturbing fresco. Closely examining the fresco, I could see that one of the symbols made a frequent appearance.
Le symbole
the recurring
étrange.
symbol on the fresco was like a distorted star with an eye in the center. I wasn't sure what it was. I made a sketch of the symbol in my
Ça
note.
peut nous être utile. Et donc là, on a un deuxième symbole étrange, hein, qui apparaît. Hein. Temple et Dieu, symbole étrange, octogramme de meurtre. Et là, ce qui est intéressant, c'est évidemment le plan géant d'Ankh-Morpork, hein, qu'il y a ici.
For some reason, the cultists had a map of Ankh-Morpork in the sanctuary. I couldn't easily take the map, but I could use it to work out some things.
Et donc, on parle d'un octogramme de meurtre. Donc, essayons de voir si les meurtres que l'on a vus dans cette affaire, par exemple le meurtre de Mundi, ensuite il y a le meurtre de Regine, il y a le meurtre de Malakith.
I knew where Malachite, Mundy, and Reagan had been killed, but the triangle didn't seem to suggest anything useful.
Certes, certes, mais maintenant, on a des infos sur d'autres meurtres. On a Brimborion à l'université invisible.
I knew precisely where 4 murders had taken place. I needed more information.
Ça vient, ça vient. Je sais que Gamin a été étranglé à la guilde des marchands.
I had found the precise location of 5 murders. I needed to know more.
Et je sais que Zairo a été noyé dans le palais du patricien.
The murders were marking out a perfect octagram, just like the one that had been used to free Nylon Athatep from sunken Leshp centuries ago.
Alors là, ça fait un
If I was
hexagramme
right,
plutôt.
there would be 2 more murders. One in Dagon Street and one in the Wizard's Pleasance.
Mais
If I
effectivement,
knew which one was next, I could stake it out. In the center of the octagram was the Disc Theater, which almost certainly meant some kind of cosmic evil was entombed there. I can't say I was enthusiastic at the thought of checking it out.
et donc effectivement avec ça, ça aussi c'était une des cinématiques qui ramait à mort sur mon ordinateur quand, quand je jouais au jeu où il y avait mais là c'est déjà que l'histoire du jeu à l'époque me fascinait, mais là quand c'est devenu Lovecraftien ça m'a ressaisi le cœur mais comme jamais. Mais vraiment, j'ai été extatique, quoi. J'étais là, mon Dieu, cette histoire devient extraordinaire. Elle l'était déjà, mais elle l'est d'autant mieux. Donc du coup, on a libéré la rue d'Agon et la plaisance des mages, qui est un jardin. Donc on va aller voir déjà... si le symbole que l'on a trouvé, le symbole étrange, donne quelque chose dans la bibliothèque.
I found the obscure star-like symbol in the Necrotelecomnicon discussed for students. It called it the sign of the eel, or the Elver sign. It was apparently a protective ward against some of the older, darker gods of the Discworld. The tome also explained how to inscribe one, the order of tracing being very important. Not that I believed any of this mumbo-jumbo, but hey, you can't afford to be too careful, right?
Ah bah là... Bonne chroniquation, bonne soirée à vous, merci d'être passé. À bientôt. Donc avec ça, je sais comment tracer le symbole de la civelle, le signe de l'anguille, ce qui va nous être très utile pour la suite du jeu. Allons voir le théâtre du disque. C'est le texte de l'intro du jeu. Oh, la cinématique a du mal.
That she was the cause of the Tsotian Wars. Of course, ask most people, and they'll tell you the patrician is a kind and benevolent man. Never trust what most people tell you. The real cause of the Tsotian Wars was a little-known goddess called Errata.
Dieu qui joue mal. Je sais que c'est le jeu, mais... Enfin, que c'est l'idée, mais Dieu qui joue mal quand même. Donc, le théâtre du disque, référence évidente au théâtre du globe. Shakespearien. Oh, un billet.
There was a flyer left behind on one of the seats.
Qu'est-ce qu'il y
I
a?
picked up the theater flyer from the Disc Theater. It told me about the plays in the Disc's current season.
Ah ah. On va s'en occuper de ça. On peut rien faire avec... Si, il y a la scène, on va s'approcher de la
The
scène, évidemment.
stage, where performers go up in front of a drunken crowd and sell their dignity to earn enough money to barely live on. It made me think that all the discs are stage and all the people players. Unfortunately, I felt like I'd been cast as an extra in my own life story.
C'est exactement la même réplique que la scène du perroquet Octarine. Donc ils ont recyclé. Il y a quelques dialogues qu'ils ont recyclés dans le jeu. Pas beaucoup, mais quelques-uns quand même. Privetier.
The pompous windbag on the stage was Privetier. He went beyond being a ham. He had 2 eggs, fried mushrooms, and a gigantic rasher of bacon. That's pretty good. You've been acting long?
One is either born an actor, or one is never an actor.
Yeah, I can just see you paddling about the womb with a script in hand.
Do you doubt my credentials as the Disc's premier performer of dramatic scenes?
As far as I'm concerned, one actor is as good as another. You come on, you speak your lines, and then you get killed. How hard can it be?
Here I stand, your slave, a poor, infirm, weak, and despised old man. Do you slight me such?
What?
You are not abreast of Hwell's fair pen, then, stranger.
The name's Luton. And no, I don't know Hwell's work at all.
My name is Privetier, and my realm is that of tragedy and comedy. The finest arts are mine.
Tragedy and comedy.
Yeah, if you say so.
J'adore. Privetier ne sert strictement à rien. Dans le jeu, on n'a pas besoin de lui parler, il va pas nous donner d'indices, rien du tout. J'arrive même pas à me rappeler sa voix en français, parce que quand je refaisais le jeu, je sais que comme j'avais pas besoin de lui causer, je lui causais pas. Mais là, du coup, épuisons tous les dialogues. Je m'en rappelle pas du tout.
It is my calling to tread the boards, and for this I am called an actor.
Translation, yes. Why do you talk like that?
When one is blessed with silk, one does not wear cotton.
What's that supposed to mean?
You are not familiar with the ways of the theater, are you, my boy?
No. I always thought it was about getting killed in a different way every night.
Well, that's part of it. But it's also about the lines, the pomp and the circumstance. Men in skirts. Yes, yes. The play's the thing.
To catch the cash flow of the dim.
You disapprove? A man must his living make.
If he could make it with decent grammar, I would mind.
You should come and see the spectacle. Perhaps then you would cast less scorn upon our merry ways.
You want me to go to see a play?
Come to hear the wooden dialogue.
That's not much of a quote.
It was the best I could do at short notice.
What's play?
Troculus and Chrysalic. The tale of the frailty of woman and the stupidity of a man in love.
With a lot of bloody deaths thrown in for good measure.
But of course.
Évidemment. Parlons des pièces de théâtre. Si, en fait, ça nous donne des indices vers où on doit mener l'histoire malgré tout.
Tell me about the plays.
Would that I had the time to sing the praises of all Hwell's masterworks. But time is short and life is fleeting.
Just tell me about the plays.
Our current season is a groundbreaking interpretation of Hwell's most famous works, pushing back the boundaries of art and style.
Groundbreaking?
'Tis a term we of the noble calling use to describe the way each generation improves and expands upon the themes laid bare in the soul by inspiration.
In other words, your murder scenes look more and more realistic every year.
The triumph of effects.
Unfortunately, the triumph of effects over plot.
The plots are as entrancing as the day they were first written.
In other words, you haven't had any new ideas in decades.
Why err from it?
Bref. Je pense qu'on peut lui montrer le billet.
Tell me about this flyer.
Ah! The proud harbinger of our festivities, the page that trumpets the act that illuminates the soul.
That inhabits the body that slept on the seats that sat in the theater that shoddy carpenters made.
Do you mock me, my boy?
Oh, you're way ahead of me on that one.
Bref. Privetier va rien nous apporter de plus.
Parting is such sweet sorrow.
Whatever.
Whatever. Mais effectivement, il nous apporte rien du tout. Je peux pas m'empêcher de penser qu'il n'y a pas... comme c'est lui en plus qui répète l'intrigue, je peux pas m'empêcher de penser qu'il y a aussi quelque chose là qui est proche de quelque chose qui a été coupé au développement. Qui a été qu'ils n'ont pas pu faire à fond ou que sais-je. Bon. Bref. Maintenant qu'on a le leaflet, retournons à la bibliothèque. Et utilisons le leaflet, le billet, sur les fiches pour en savoir plus sur les pièces de théâtre.
I looked up Huel in the library and found his complete works. In there was a discussion of the 8 great tragedies.
Huit tragédies.
From the About the Author paragraph, I learned that Huel was a dwarf who was banished from his tribe not only because of his claustrophobia, but because of his tendency to daydream. Both undesirable, to say the least, if you work in a mine. 102, and in the prime of his life for a dwarf, Huel now worked for Vittler's Plays at the Disc Theatre as one of the premier playwrights of the day. The 8 great tragedies were given in great detail. 8 plays, each with a collection of murders, usually with one more particularly gruesome or grotesque than the others, presumably for use in publicity trailers. The publicity trailers helped draw people into the theater by being towed around town to display posters. There was something suspiciously familiar about some of those murders.
Il y a quelque chose d'intéressant dans ces meurtres. Ils disent tous quelque chose, indeed. Donc si on regarde d'un peu plus près, les 8 grandes tragédies.
The 8 great tragedies were still in the complete works of Huel. Well, it wasn't like they were going anywhere. Cheery collection of plays. In Titus Diplodocus, Titus was responsible for dismembering and eating various people before meeting his own grisly demise.
Titus Diplodocus.
In almost all the other plays, the lead met a horrible end. The Happy Prince of Copperhaven, who was poisoned at birth, and Antilogy and Clephatara, who were stabbed and poisoned by an asp, respectively. Kensington, who was strangled by his wife. The Leering King, who had his eyes gouged out. The Tyrant, who was stabbed repeatedly in the back. And Truculus and Cresselik. He gets dragged through the streets of Sort until dead, and she is one of the tiny handful of protagonists to actually survive one of Huel's action-packed blockbuster murder fests. If they held a Protagonists of Huel's Tragedies annual reunion, the only other person there would be the lead role in The King of Ankh.
Intéressant tout ça. Alors, si je me rappelle bien, maintenant il faut utiliser cet indice des 8 tragédies avec le plan dans le sanctuaire.
The map couldn't help with that.
Non, il faut faire le lien entre les 8 tragédies et puis les meurtres.
I'd read about the death of the title role in The Leering King, one of the 8 great tragedies. The king was hung upside down from a tree, whereupon his eyes were gouged out. It sounded very familiar. In Antilogy and Clephatara, the Queen of Jelly Baby is killed when she is bitten by an asp that would have left tiny bite marks on her. I was definitely onto something. Malachite, stabbed in the back repeatedly with a crowbar. The lead in The Tyrant, stabbed in the back repeatedly. Not with a crowbar, but it was close enough.
De toute façon, on a du mal à poignarder un troll. Brimborion. Ah, mince, il fallait que je reclique dessus.
Matham had been poisoned. It wasn't exactly the same as the poisoning of Village and the Happy Prince of Copperhaven, but there were definite similarities with one of the other poisonings in the play. The merchant Gaiman was strangled in his guild house. I didn't know by whom, but it certainly sounded similar to the strangling of the merchant in Kensington, one of Hwell's great tragedies, who had been strangled by his wife, who thought he had cheated on her.
Uh-huh.
Cypher had died just like the king's retainer in The King of Ankh, drowned in a vat of wine.
Donc avec ça... Non. Ok. Donc il y a définitivement quelque chose que je peux faire avec ça, peut-être avec le leaflet. D'abord je veux voir si en faisant le signe de l'anguille sur...
Definitely the Elver sign.
Ok. Certes. Octogramme de meurtre.
If I was right, they would. If I knew which, in the center of the.
Est-ce que du coup je peux faire l'octogramme de meurtre avec les 8 grandes tragédies?
8 plays, an 8-pointed symbol. There had to be a connection.
Oui, il y a une connexion.
The map.
Newton, je te demande de faire marcher ta cervelle. Évidemment qu'il y a une connexion. Ah! Est-ce qu'il faut que je fasse les meurtres sur les fiches? Alors, attendez, non. Est-ce qu'il faut que j'utilise le leaflet sur le plan? Non. Ok, on va aller à la bibliothèque. Est-ce que si j'utilise... le meurtre de Mundi avec les fiches, par exemple, il va faire le lien tout seul. Ah, je suis pas loin. Je sais plus ce qu'il faut que je fasse. Théâtre du disque. Je sais qu'il faut faire le symbole en plus sur le mur. Je me rappelle de ça pour entrer dans le coin caché, mais là je le vois pas. Peut-être qu'il faut d'abord que j'aille voir dans les deux zones là. Certes. Alors, enseigne.
One of the shops in the street was called the Three Jolly Luck Takeaway Fish Bar. I remembered that name from somewhere. Something to do with Mr. Hong. I remember he went missing somehow.
Aha.
I wasn't about to take the sign.
Alors, est-ce qu'on a... Façade de magasin barricadée.
The fish bar was boarded up tight. I couldn't pull the boards off with my hands.
Par contre, je le peux peut-être avec un pied de biche.
Where I'd pulled away the boards was an open window.
Encore une fois, augmentez la luminosité de votre jeu si jamais vous avez du mal à voir parce que le jeu est particulièrement sombre. Des débris.
The fish bar was littered with assorted debris. Amongst the debris, I found a bone that seemed a little out of place.
Uh-huh.
The bone seemed out of place somehow. I wasn't sure why. I didn't want to take the bone. It was bad enough that I'd been carrying around some dead troll's tooth all this time.
Certes. Je crois qu'il n'y a plus rien d'autre à voir ici à part les débris et cette eau. Si je me transforme en loup...
There was a disturbing dark magenta scent in the fish bar. Something that resonated with cosmic evil. It scared me. It scared me that anything could have such a disturbing scent. And it scared me that I could tell what color cosmic evil was.
Et évidemment, c'est toujours l'odeur de notre assassin.
There was definitely some similarity between the magenta and dark magenta scents. But it wasn't clear to me what that connection might be.
C'est pas tout à fait du coup la même odeur. C'est du magenta foncé. Intéressant. Bref. Alors si je me rappelle bien, c'est là où justement il faut utiliser les 8 tragédies pour savoir ce que c'est que cet os.
I needed a little more to go on than just a bone. I was reasonably the bone. I needed.
Il y a un truc à faire avec la tragédie. Mais si, il y a quelque chose avec... Ah! Je suis pas loin.
I needed a...
Qu'est-ce qui me manque?
8 plays and 8 pointed there had to...
Oui, il y a un lien. Ah mince. Comment est-ce que je le débloque ce lien? Que la plaisance des mages, il va rien avoir.
Haunted meadow in a horseshoe bend in the Ankh, inside the grounds of the unseen university, separated from it but connected to the university gardens by the Bridge of Sighs. On summer evenings, if the wind is blowing towards the river, it is a nice area for a stroll.
Ah, je me rappelais pas du tout de ça par contre, effectivement. D'accord, il y a quelque chose à faire effectivement au théâtre que j'avais oublié.
I could hide in the bushes, but for how long? I'd need to know that the next murder was definitely going to be here before I did that.
Tout à fait. Tout à fait, tout à fait. Oh, Newton, ah, le pathfinding parfois est un peu compliqué. Ouais. Je suis pas sûr. Il y a quelque chose effectivement que j'ai oublié de faire au disque. Mais c'était pas évident. En fait, on peut se transformer en loup.
If I was going to turn into a wolf, I'd better do it where Privitier couldn't see me.
Si on se rapproche, je crois que on peut se changer en loup. Ouais. Ça, c'est pas évident. Je me rappelais pas de ça.
Dark magenta scent in the theater. But what caught my attention was the magenta scent that seemed to disappear into the stage. My murderer had been here.
Et oui, je me rappelais pas du tout de ça, mais effectivement, on peut se cacher dans la scène pour se changer vite en loup. Ce qui est pas, ce qui encore une fois est pas super logique. Je pense qu'il pouvait y avoir à un moment donné une énigme où on devait faire partir l'acteur d'une façon ou d'une autre pour pouvoir se changer en loup sans personne dans le théâtre. Mais malheureusement,
where the center
voilà.
Disappeared, there were some marks. I couldn't quite make them out, but they seemed to be a definite shape of some kind.
C'est pour ça que j'ai regardé à nouveau une solution parce que je me rappelais pas de ça effectivement.
I ran my finger around the marks casually. There was something about them that made you want to trace things on them, like a smiley face or a tic-tac-toe board. Well, something like that. Maybe something a little more sinister.
Évidemment quelque chose de beaucoup plus sinistre parce que maintenant on sait tracer le signe de l'anguille.
I traced the sign of the eel across the marks, exactly as I'd learned how to do in the Libraris Apocrypha. There was a faint click, and the next thing I knew, there was a passageway under the stage.
Clic. Et là, on approche de la fin de l'acte. Et comme hier, je m'arrêterai à la fin de l'acte. Je vais faire une vidéo par acte. L'acte 2 était beaucoup plus long. Bien alors, enfin, en tout cas, il y avait beaucoup plus de dialogue. J'avais souvenir effectivement que c'était l'acte le plus complexe. Ça, c'est tellement un écran qui est très bizarre pour un jeu d'aventure. On dirait plus un truc issu de Soul River ou d'un jeu d'action de l'époque PlayStation.
The whole sepulchral temple seemed to be formed from curves and angles that would give geometry teachers nightmares.
Certes. Alors, qu'est-ce qu'il y a à l'hôtel?
The centerpiece to this disturbing chamber was a stone altar engraved with a map of the Circle Sea. It looked centuries old, the kind of altar that could tell a few tales if it could talk. I was glad it couldn't. The map of the Circle C seemed to be the only interesting feature of the altar.
Ouais, il n'y a rien d'autre ici à explorer, mais heureusement, du coup, il y a des choses que l'on peut faire avec l'hôtel.
Using the map, I worked out where each of the 8 great tragedies had taken place. They made an octagram around the edge, just like the counterweight killings did in Ankh-Morpork. I could match each of the tragedies to one of the murders, and the positions corresponded precisely. I knew that someone was going to get dragged to death from the Wizard's Pleasance, and that some unlucky fellow was going to get eaten in Dagon Street. I had a feeling I knew what had bothered me about the bone in the fish bar now. It was a human femur. That meant there was only one murder to go, and that it would take place at the Wizard's Pleasance.
Là encore, c'est quelque chose que je trouve un peu tiré par les cheveux, parce qu'on a déjà fait cette connexion-là entre les meurtres et les différents emplacements de la ville, et on aurait pu le déduire du coup que dans ces deux-là, il y avait forcément ou bien quelqu'un dévoré vivant, ou bien quelqu'un traîné à mort, et en voyant l'os, on aurait pu faire la connexion. Et donc en faisant, comme j'ai fait sur chaque tragédie, avec les tragédies, les 6 meurtres, on aurait dû arriver déjà à cette conclusion. Ça, c'est quelque chose que dans les jeux d'aventure aujourd'hui, on autoriserait, je pense. Et c'était quelque chose que faisaient à l'époque les jeux Sierra, dans certaines mesures, c'est qu'il n'y avait pas qu'une seule façon d'accéder à la solution, mais qu'il y en avait plusieurs qui pouvaient coexister. Généralement, il y en avait une qui apportait le plus de points possible, mais du coup, ça peut rendre, encore une fois, ce passage un peu frustrant. Mais bon. Voilà, je dis pas que à chaque fois que j'arrive pas à faire quelque chose dans le jeu, c'est la faute du jeu, mais je pense que c'est la faute du jeu et que j'avais le bon raisonnement, mais que à chaque fois, bon, il nous manque un petit quelque chose. C'est là qu'un système d'indices, comme on voit maintenant dans les jeux d'aventure, sert pour nous dire, voilà, vous êtes pas loin, mais il faut que vous fassiez ça. Bon, bref.
I doubled back on myself, trying to get a good look at the dwarf who was following me. It was Al-Kali. I slipped away into the streets before he realized I'd spotted him.
Et donc là, maintenant, la seule différence, c'est qu'ici, il y a un petit toutou.
I wasn't an expert on dogs.
Et c'est exactement le même chien qui était près de la guilde des archéologues.
The Pleasance was cut off from the city by a tall exterior wall. I couldn't easily scale the wall.
Et donc avec ça, on va se planquer dans les buissons et on va attendre qu'Al-Kali vienne à notre rencontre. Pauvre Al-Kali. Newton, pourquoi tu vas à l'autre bout de l'écran? Newton, va dans les buissons. Newton, je te demande de venir. Newton, c'est quoi cette marche de Michael Jackson? Tout à l'heure tu joues du fessier, maintenant tu fais le moonwalk, c'est quoi cette affaire?
I didn't know how long I'd have to wait until something happened, but it turned out to be less than I thought. I'd suspected I'd been being followed, and I wasn't surprised to find that Al-Kali was skulking around behind me. Gods alone knows how he got into the university. But if I could do it, I guess anyone could.
C'est aussi une cinématique qui ramait à mort. Je pense que la pluie, mon ordinateur de l'époque, l'ordinateur familial, aimait pas du tout. Ça, je me rappelle de cette ère de terreur. Pauvre Al-Kali, qui méritait sans doute pas ce sort.
It was over in seconds.
Et avec ça, les 8 meurtres rituels ont eu lieu.
I was about to follow the killer's trail when I saw a familiar face.
Tiens donc, Carlotta.
Why did you carry on with the case, Luton?
Too many people told me to stop.
I was hoping it wouldn't come to this. I like you, Luton. It didn't have to be this way.
So you're behind this, are you?
I'm just a servant. My master, Anu, is behind this.
That beast is Mooncalf's god?
Mooncalf didn't start this cult. I did. When the last human worshippers of Anu had passed on, leaving only an empty temple in their wake, the cult lived on among the lycanthropes. My late husband got me involved, and I came back to Ankh-Morpork to arrange everything.
Came back?
I thought you'd realize, Luton. I'm Therma.
It figures. You killed Malachite, didn't you?
I didn't kill any of them. My master did that.
Carlotta et
We
Therma.
just arranged everything for him. He's
Ça, c'était
stronger when we gather together.
ma grosse révélation quand j'étais petit. J'étais là genre... Oh
Gods each time there was a murder.
It was a perfect alibi.
Why was Malachite looking for you?
I'm his sister.
His sister. Hands up who can spot the big problem here.
I was adopted by Mr. and Mrs. Karst. They named me Therma. And Malachite and I grew up together.
What happened?
It's a tough life when you're a poor troll. And tougher still when you weren't born a troll. I used to sit at the table eating bread, while the rest of the family was chewing cold sandwiches. That kind of thing leaves its mark on a girl.
My heart bleeds for you.
Malachite and I broke into the von Uberwald mansion and made off with some of the Count's valuables, including that pendant you've been carrying around.
And that jeweled box in the carriage that presumably held the asp that poisoned Reagan.
That's right.
How did you and Malachite get separated?
He got caught, but he didn't tell the watch about me. I thought I'd seen the last of him. I sold most of what I got, and I was living off it comfortably. But I'd seen that painting in the hallway, and it got me thinking.
The painting that looks like you?
Exactly. I reinvented myself as a debutante, and I seduced Ulrich and married into high society. I went back to Uberwald with him, changed my name to Carlotta, and my life as a troll was forgotten. Therma was dead. Long live Carlotta von Uberwald.
Did you know Ulrich was a werewolf?
Not until the honeymoon. That was a surprise, I can tell you.
Ah oui,
Not
je peux
entirely an
l'imaginer.
unpleasant one, I have to say.
How did you get involved in this cult business?
Before he died, Ulrich inducted me into the worship of Anu, and it became my mission to engineer his return to power. I recruited followers and we prayed to him, gradually awakening his consciousness. He'd been stuck in the form of a small dog on the streets of Al-Khali for decades, not even remembering who he was. As our numbers grew, Anu's power grew. And eventually he was able to slip aboard a ship.
J'aime bien cette idée des dieux qui deviennent plus forts, plus ils ont de fidèles.
The Milka.
Ça
That's
marche
right.
bien.
The Milka also stopped off at Sort, where it picked up Mundi. He was supposed to be bringing us the Sortese falchion, having stolen it from a dig at Sorta. The archaeologists didn't even know it was there. Unfortunately, what we hadn't counted on was that Mundi was a man with few scruples and even less brains to go with it. Either he approached Horst, or Horst approached him. One way or another, he arranged to sell the sword to that devious troll.
Only he didn't have the sword, did he? He'd concealed it in one of the crates in the cargo hold.
We didn't know that. We just knew that Mundi had gone to ground. That's why I hired you to find him.
And when I did, your cult killed him. Only you'd expected the sword to be with him. And by the time he was dead, it was too late to ask him where he'd put it.
We couldn't believe our luck when you found the sword for us after Mundi's death. I'm sorry that my master had to stab you to get it.
Did you know I was going to get killed? Was that why you made me into a werewolf?
I suspected that things would get a little rough for you, and I believed you were too valuable an asset to waste.
I'm flattered.
Un asset.
The counterweight killings were your cult attempting to summon Nyarlathotep by mimicking the way he was summoned before. I don't get it.
With the falchion, my master can defeat the laddering horror again, and he will grow in power, ascending to the ranks of the most powerful gods, where he belongs.
That's all very well, but a lot of people died for that dream. You can't just go around killing people whenever the notion strikes you. It's not polite.
What are the lives of a few people against the prize?
Reagan knew, didn't he? Or at least suspected.
I don't know what he actually knew, but he suspected a lot. He'd been blackmailing me for weeks. He had to go.
Why are you telling me all this?
It's customary for him to explain his evil scheme.
C'est vrai que là, ça fait un peu exposition dump.
I'm no hero, and you're no villain either. We're just people.
You know it's not too late, Luton. Join us.
Join your cult. What happens if I refuse?
There's no point in refusing. It's already too late to stop the summoning of Nylonathotep. Al-Khali was the 8th murder. Even now, the other cultists are gathering at the focal
Ouais, ça va être la fin de l'acte, là.
That would be the temple under the Disc Theater, I take it.
You're good. I'll give you that. Let's go, or we'll miss the pre-summoning.
What if I try to stop you?
Like I said, it's already too late for that. Join us, Luton. You know it's the only choice.
I could kill you and make a run for it.
You wouldn't hurt me, would you, Luton? After all we've been through.
You arranged the murder of your own brother, and you'd have me killed too if I got in the way.
So what? In this world, you get one chance at happiness.
You may be right. All right. I'll go along with this for now, but I'm not making any promises for the future.
That's good enough for me.
Carlotta told me she would have to bind me in case I got any foolish ideas, and then she escorted me into the depths of the temple. It looked like the whole crowd was there. As well as Carlotta, I recognized Mooncalf and Warb, the wizard from Saturnalia. 8 of them in all. 1 for each person on the list. But my attention was drawn to the hulking mass of Anu Anu, and the golden sword that he was wielding like it was a toothpick.
It begins.
Non.
Take your places, people.
En VF, ils lui ont fait une voix très nasillarde à Anu Anu. C'est très bizarre ce choix.
Who summoned thee?
Nous t'invoquons ce type de truc.
Perhaps we have made 8 sacrifices in the manner prescribed. Come to us.
Je sais pas pourquoi ils ont fait ça.
I guess summoning rituals have that effect on me.
It is here. Now I command you, by the power of the fashion, to bend to my will. Bend to my will, I command thee. I hold the fashion. You will obey me.
Ouais, bien sûr.
The impression that wasn't supposed to happen. The temple was coming apart at the seams and falling everywhere.
Aïe.
I don't know what was wrong, but it seemed as if Anu Anu couldn't control the unspeakable force of cosmic horror that he had unleashed, and now it was loose in the city. As if my day wasn't bad enough already.
Ouais, c'était pas le meilleur des plans quand même, de faire venir une créature comme ça dans Ankh-Morpork. Acte 4.
After the rubble had settled, I pulled myself out from under it and had a look around. The temple seemed different somehow. And not just because the roof had caved in. Anu Anu was lying in a crumpled heap on the other side of the chamber, and Carlotta was tending to his wounds. The rest of the cult had made their getaway. Everyone but Warb, whose luck had taken a permanent turn for the worse.
Allez, on va s'arrêter là pour ce soir. Et on terminera le jeu lors du dernier stream. L'acte 4 est beaucoup plus court dans mes souvenirs. Hop, ça a bien marché. Tac. Et avec ça... quittons la partie. Ah bah tiens, fond d'écran de Discworld 2. C'est à propos. Bref. Merci à toutes et tous celles et ceux qui m'ont vu ce soir ou qui reverront le stream en replay. Je vous souhaite une bonne fin de soirée, une bonne semaine. Et puis voilà, cette vidéo sera disponible en ligne pendant une semaine sur Twitch. Et puis je l'uploaderai sur ma chaîne YouTube dans la semaine, dans les jours qui viennent. Voilà. Et puis vraisemblablement dans les jours qui viennent également. On terminera l'aventure dans un stream. Et puis il y en aura sans doute un autre dans la semaine également. Passez une bonne soirée, je vous dis à bientôt. Ciao.